Chapter 96. A thought flashed through Chu Liyue's mind. That day at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, he did it on purpose. But why? Your Highness, Chu Liyue was about to ask clearly, but Rong Xiu had already stood up. You have been busy all day, so this king will not disturb you. He stiffly put on his cloak and turned to leave. The tall black figure quickly disappeared into the ink-like night. Chu Liyue looked in the direction he disappeared for a while, then gently exhaled, her fingers curling. Just now when Rong Xiu was so close to her, her heart suddenly beat faster. Logically speaking, she would never allow a person to offend her again and again, but she did not seem to be annoyed by Rong Xiu's proximity. Faintly, she seemed to firmly believe that Rong Xiu would not harm her. However, she herself did not know where this inexplicable trust came from. After experiencing the heart-wrenching betrayal in her previous life, she thought that she would never get close to anyone again. But whether it was Chu Ning or Rong Xiu, they seemed to be able to make her gradually dispel the wariness in her heart. Chu Liyue thought for a while but could not think of any reason, so she simply gave up. As usual, she sat cross-legged on the bed, continuing to cultivate and absorb the yuan qi of heaven and earth. After completing a cycle, she lay down to rest. For the next 2 days, the celebration at Phoenix Restaurant continued, but Rong Xiu did not go again. This made those who wanted to use this opportunity to establish a relationship with Prince Li very disappointed. But his status was high and it was already very rare for him to come, so it was normal for him not to come again. Many people wanted to ask Chu Liyue for some information, but they were all dismissed by Chu Liyue with a few words. Everyone could only vaguely guess that perhaps Chu Ning and Prince Li had some relationship, but they could not find out the specifics. From their conversation, Chu Liyue and Prince Li did not seem to be familiar with each other. This could also be guessed. With Prince Li's status, how could he have any relationship with Chu Liyue? Even if she was admitted to Tianlu Academy and was a martial artist and mystic master double genius, there was still a huge gap between her and Prince Li without the support of an aristocratic family. On the other hand, Chu Ning, the new Imperial Guard's commander, was the Emperor's trusted aide, so he was worth interacting with. But these 2 days, Chu Ning had been busy with the fourth princess's matter and did not appear at Phoenix Restaurant, which made many people feel regretful. With these few things stacked together, the crowd's attention on Chu Liyue lessened significantly. Xiu 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 yu xiu xiu. It's xiu 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 yu. No matter what, Chu Liyue had Zhenbao Pavilion's support, so she was not to be trifled with. Xiu 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 yu yu xiu 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 was school, xiu xiu day. Many people had already arrived at the entrance of the academy, making it much livelier. Chu Liyue alighted from the carriage and immediately attracted many people's attention. The originally noisy entrance immediately quieted down. Countless pairs of eyes looked over with different expressions. Little Luyu, you're finally here. Following this excited voice, a person walked quickly toward Chu Liyue. It was Bai Qin. Teacher Bai Qin. Chu Liyue greeted him. Bai Qin looked at her happily. I've been waiting for you for a while. Why are you only here now? I'm staying in the academy and have many things to pack, so I'm a little late, Chu Liyue explained. Bai Qin chuckled. Your residence has already been arranged. Just follow me. Chu Liyue nodded. Thank you for your trouble, Teacher Bai Qin. No trouble at all. You're now a popular figure in the academy. Many people want to snatch this opportunity, but they can't beat me, hee. Chu Liyue's talent was obvious to everyone. After she chose to cultivate as a mystic cultivator, she had yet to choose a teacher. The mystic cultivator teachers were all very excited. Who wouldn't want such a talented disciple? Today was Chu Liyue's first day of school. They naturally couldn't miss such a great opportunity to get close to her. Although Bai Qin didn't have much hope for himself, he liked Chu Liyue from the bottom of his heart, so he was happy to come. Is this your luggage in the carriage? Yes. It's all daily necessities. Then I'll find someone to help you. Before Bai Qin could finish speaking, a mocking female voice suddenly sounded from the side. Where did this lousy carriage come from? It actually dares to stop at the academy's entrance? This voice was somewhat familiar. Chu Liyue's eyes turned and saw a familiar face. Lu Fian. She stood in the distance and covered her nose as she looked at Chu Liyue's carriage in disgust. She didn't hide her disdain at all. Is this carriage made of rotten wood? Why does it have a moldy smell? Her gaze swept over Chu Liyue and she sneered. She deliberately raised her voice and said to the people around her, Look, that horse's fur is of a mixed color. It's obvious that it's an inferior breed. Why would any respectable daughter of an aristocratic family use this kind of carriage? The other women behind her also echoed her words. She's no longer a daughter of an aristocratic family. Of course she can't compare to us. That's right. So what if she's a genius? Isn't she still poor? What a joke. Bai Chen's face darkened. He was about to flare up when Chu Liwei stopped him. Teacher Bai Chen, I know that carriages can't enter the academy, but I brought a little too many things. Can you call a few people to help? Bai Chen was stunned. Of course. Chu Liwei looked at Lu Fian and the others, who were laughing together, and smiled. Then I'll leave it to you guys. Chapter 97. Lu Fian's smile froze on her face. Who do you think you are? How dare you order me around? Chu Liwei had already left the Chu family and was nothing. Even if she was still the first miss of the Chu family, she did not have the right to do so. Lu Fian, this is the academy, not the Lu family. Why are you throwing a tantrum? Bai Chen was used to such situations, so he was not affected at all. He spoke harshly. If you want to throw your weight around, go back to the Lu family now. Lu Fian was reprimanded, so she restrained herself. However, it was impossible for her to be Chu Liue's assistant. Mr. Bai Chen, Chu Liue just enrolled today. Although she's in the same batch as us, it's not up to us to do these things, right? Bai Chen sneered. Although it's her first day here, she's much stronger and more talented than all of you. In Tianlu Academy, the strong are respected. Besides, I'm just asking you to help me carry something. Why are you so unwilling? Or is it that the words of a teacher don't work here? Lu Fian and the rest did not dare to go against Bai Chen. Seeing that they could not avoid it, they could only walk over unwillingly. Lu Fian glanced at the carriage. What good things could a poor family with no one to rely on have? She was worried that she would dirty her hands. Chu Liue walked over and took out a black carved wooden box. A faint fragrance filled the air. Bai Chen took a deep breath and felt the fragrance instantly fill his internal organs, making him feel comfortable all over. His eyes lit up. This is a green plum tree? Mr. Bai Chen, you have good eyesight. Lu Fian frowned when she heard, green plum tree. Actually, when Chu Liue took out the wooden box, she had smelled the faint plum blossom fragrance. She guessed that it might be a green plum tree, but she did not want to believe it. This tree was extremely precious and only grew in extremely cold places. It grew an inch every 3 years, and it would only bloom after 100 years. Ordinary people might not even see it once in their lifetime, let alone own it. Yin, your bracelet seems to be carved from green plum tree, right? A woman beside him couldn't help but ask in a low voice. Lu Fian's face turned pale. When she had been admitted to Tianlu Academy, her mother had specially bought her a bracelet made of plum wood as a reward. She liked it very much and often wore it on her hand, so everyone who was close to her knew about it. This bracelet had attracted the envy of many people. But now, Chu Liue actually took out a wooden box carved from green plum wood? Just the material alone was several times more expensive than the bracelet. Her wooden box must have cost a lot, right? Another woman murmured. What do you know? There were also good and bad plum trees. Don't be fooled by the size of this wooden box. It might just be made from some cheap leftover materials. Lu Fian said snappily. Chu Liue raised his eyebrows. So Miss Lu has seen the green plum wood before. Then I'm relieved. You can take this thing. Lu Fian was stunned. She felt something heavy in her hand. Chu Liue had already placed the item in her hand. It was warm and delicate to the touch. She could even vaguely feel the veins on it. The fragrance was also stronger than before. She could not help but look down and see the exquisite carvings of plum blossoms on the wooden box. They were very lifelike. She burst out laughing and could not hide her disdain. You were indeed born poor and have not seen much of the world. This plum wood grows very slowly and is always in a place of ice and snow, so it is cool and heavy. It has the effect of calming one's mind. However, once the veins are destroyed and something is randomly carved on it, the spirit within will quickly dissipate. In the end, it will become a piece of rotten wood. This plum wood of yours is completely ruined. Chu Liue was criticized by her, but he did not look upset at all. Instead he laughed. Everyone says that the Lu family is as rich as a country. Miss Lu, you really know a lot. It is indeed easy to damage this plum wood if you carve it rashly. However, if you squeeze the plum blossoms into juice and soak them for a month, there won't be such a problem. Lu Fian stuttered. What? Green plum, juice, soak? Plum wood was already so rare, let alone plum blossoms. Even she had not seen it before. If Miss Lu doesn't believe me, you can take a closer look at the plum blossoms. It is because of the juice that the stamen is green. Lu Fian hurriedly looked down and saw that the plum blossoms were suffused with a faint green color. The fragrance was also exceptionally strong and refreshing. Lu Fian widened her eyes in disbelief. This thing could be considered extremely precious. Just this plumwood box alone was worth 1,000,000 taels of silver. If the plum juice was added, Lu Fian was shocked, but she refused to admit defeat. She could only stubbornly say, "I say you treasure this thing so much. I'm afraid this is your entire fortune. You even brought it with you to the academy. This is the box I used to store the tea. Naturally, I have to bring it." Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Lu Fian choked and then sneered. "What good tea do you have?" Chu Luiyue did not have any tea that could match this plumwood box. Chu Luiyue nodded lightly. "I really don't have any good tea. I just casually put some flower tea and soak my feet when I have nothing to do." Lu Fian was stunned. It took her a while to react. Her face turned green and white. How interesting. Chu Luiyue actually asked her to bring something to soak her feet? Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 98. What was worse was that Chu Luiyue actually used the precious green plumwood box to hold the flower tea. This was simply a waste of God's gift. Lu Fian really wanted to ask Chu Luiyue what he was thinking. But when the words were about to come out of her mouth, she saw Chu Luiyue's calm expression and indifferent tone, as if this was an ordinary matter that was not worth mentioning. In this way, it would seem that she was making a fuss over nothing and had not seen the world. Lu Fian's heart was filled with resentment and her chest felt as if it was blocked by something. She was extremely sullen. She was the dignified eldest daughter of the Lu family. When did she have to serve people like this? Once she thought that the thing in her hand was used by Chu Luiyue to soak her feet, she was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. "Who wants to give you this lousy thing?" Lu Fian scolded and was about to throw the wooden box away. "Eldest Miss Lu, please be careful. Although this thing is not very expensive, if it is broken, I may have to trouble eldest Miss Lu to compensate." Chu Luiyue's expression was gentle and polite as he gently pressed his hand on the wooden box. Lu Fian only felt a heavy pressure coming over her and instantly suppressed her, making her unable to move. She was shocked. When did Chu Luiyue become so powerful? Moreover, if he really wanted to compensate, she would definitely not be able to take out so much money herself. After a long struggle in her heart, Lu Fian finally released her strength and said with gritted teeth, "I know. Isn't it just a green plumwood box? What is there to be proud of?" Boos came from the crowd. Lu Fian's words were really too sour. When she wore the green plumwood bracelet, her chin was raised to the sky. Moreover, this Chu Luiyue was only used to hold flower tea. How could this be compared? Chu Luiyue curved his eyes in satisfaction. Eldest Miss Lu is really a tactful person. After saying that, Chu Luiyue took out something from the carriage. Rainbow glass cup. This thing is very brittle. If the temperature is too high or too low, it will explode. Please hold it carefully. Purple jade fan. It's the middle of summer now and the weather is very hot. It's good for fanning. Oh, this inkstone is made of gold thread. You can't touch it directly with your hands. You have to use a silver thread pad to hold it. Chu Luiyue explained the details to them as he took them. The originally arrogant Lu Fian and the others were gradually dumbfounded. These things could be said to be priceless. There were even some that they had only heard of but had never seen before. Looking at those things, Lu Fian, who was originally filled with resentment and unwillingness, became even more unsightly. She had originally thought that the green plumwood box was the only thing Chu Luiyue could bring out, but now it seemed that this was clearly not the case. Lu Fian recalled how she had mocked Chu Luiyue, saying that she came from a poor family. She felt suffocated and her face was burning. How he wished he could find a hole to crawl into right now. Even a fool could tell who was the one who hadn't seen the world. If Lu Fian was like this, there was no need to mention the others. The few women were already stunned. They held the things in their hands stiffly and didn't dare to move, for fear that they would accidentally damage the things. They couldn't afford to pay for it. The surrounding crowd, who had been waiting to watch a show, was also stunned. This Chu Luiyue, wasn't she too generous? Didn't they say that she and Chu Ning had completely severed ties with the Chu family? Logically speaking, their lives should be quite tense, but now, it seemed that they were better off than most of the aristocratic family's descendants. Even Bai Chen couldn't help but take a few glances at those things. He smacked his lips. I really couldn't tell that little Lu Yu had so many good things. These weren't things that could be obtained with money. Some treasures were things that even he didn't have the means to obtain. Chu Luiyue smiled but didn't say anything. How could the original Chu Luiyue have these things? Even the Chu family might not be able to afford such things. These were actually things that she had picked out from the boxes that Second Master Yen had sent over. Just these alone had already attracted the attention of many people. If they knew that she had even more at home and these weren't even 1/10 of what she had brought over, what would their expressions be? At first, she was already very surprised when she saw that Second Master Yen had sent over so many boxes of gifts. She didn't expect an even bigger surprise to await her after she opened them. Every single item inside was an extremely precious treasure. The so-called treasures in Zhenbao Pavilion couldn't compare to these at all. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but re-evaluate Zhenbao Pavilion's wealth and background. It had been a few days since the incident with the fourth princess, but there had been no news of His Majesty punishing Zhenbao Pavilion. She could already guess many things from these incidents. Zhenbao Pavilion was even more mysterious than she had imagined. In her previous life as the Heavenly Princess, she had seen and used the best things. The value of these things wasn't enough to shock her. But these things, from the teacup to the writing brush and ink, even the flower tea in the green plumwood box, she liked them all. Everything was just right. She liked them all. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 99. Without a doubt, these were the handiwork of the mysterious head of Treasure Pavilion. Chu Luiyue became increasingly curious. She wondered who this person was and why he did so many things for her. This was definitely not something that could be exchanged for a hunting grounds title deed. She had previously probed Yen Gu to meet the head of Treasure Pavilion, but Yen Gu tactfully declined. He said that the head of Treasure Pavilion was rarely in the imperial capital, and it was difficult even for him to meet him. If Chu Luiyue really wanted to meet him, she would have to wait. Chu Luiyue was rather open-minded. Since the other party had sent these treasures over, she would just take them. When the other party wanted to meet her, she would naturally meet him. At that time they could talk about other things. Moreover, she liked these things a lot. It would be a waste not to take them. Bai Chen glanced at the deflated Lu Fian and the others and laughed loudly. Let's go. I'll take you to see your residence now. Chu Luiyue followed Bai Chen into the academy. Lu Fian and the others followed behind with the items, looking like her servants. Their group attracted a lot of attention along the way. Although many people had seen Chu Luiyue when she participated in the midterm examination, most of them were from the same batch. The students from the two batches before her were also very familiar with Chu Luiyue's name. Now that she had finally arrived, they naturally wanted to take a closer look and see what kind of person she was. However, with Bai Chen around, no one tactfully came up to find trouble. After entering the academy, Chu Luiyue quickly saw many houses. These houses were all standalone courtyards, and they were separated by a certain distance from each other. The academy occupies a large area, and there aren't many students, so every student has their own house. This way, even if they don't attend classes on weekdays, they can cultivate in peace in their own place. Bai Chen explained to Chu Luiyue as he walked. Although the arena and library are shared in the academy, the territories of martial artists, Xian cultivators, and celestial physician are separated due to different cultivation methods. The area we just passed is the territory of martial artists. After crossing this Xuanqing River, it will be the territory of us mystic cultivators. Chu Luiyue looked ahead and saw a clear river meandering past with a 7-hole stone bridge over it. On the other side of the river, there were also some individual courtyards, but they were obviously much larger than the ones he had seen earlier. Looks like the students' residences are different, Chu Luiyue muttered. Of course. The conditions of us Shen masters are much better than those of martial artists. Bai Chen smiled proudly. This courtyard is at least twice as big as the one over there. Chu Luiyue nodded in understanding. On the one hand, there were very few mystic cultivators, and on the other hand, mystic cultivators had a higher status than martial artists, so it was normal for there to be such a difference. Yes, that courtyard is your residence. Bai Chen pointed at a courtyard by the river in the distance. That location is very close to Jiuyo Tower and the library. It's very convenient. Chu Luiyue felt warmth in his heart. Thank you, Teacher Bai Chen. You don't have to thank me. Elder Sun specially instructed me to do this. It's rare for you to be so talented as a martial artist and a mystic cultivator, so it's normal for you to receive such treatment. After all, the teachers also hope that you can become truly powerful. Bai Chen's expression became much more serious. Chu Luiyue could tell that he meant what he said. Although Bai Chen had a bad temper, he didn't have any bad intentions. As a teacher, he also did his job well. After arriving at the courtyard, Chu Luiyue could tell at a glance that this place had been meticulously cleaned, so he was naturally even more satisfied. Lu Fian and the others felt even more uncomfortable when they saw this. They put down their things and left angrily. Chu Luiyue didn't mind. She didn't need to worry about these people. Bai Chen then told her some things to take note of, and Chu Luiyue noted them down one by one. This is your nameplate and uniform. When you're done tidying up here, make a trip to Peach Garden when you're free. That's where the teachers usually handle their daily affairs. Although you've already chosen to cultivate as a mystic cultivator, you haven't chosen a teacher yet. Once you've made your choice, go to Peach Garden to become a disciple and register. Then you can officially start cultivating. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and still asked, Teacher Bai Chen, do I have to choose this teacher? Digression. Actually, I don't know when it will be published in February. **** mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from LoveNet. Chapter 100. Bai Chen looked at her strangely. Of course. Since you've entered the academy to cultivate, how can you not have a teacher? Especially Xian masters, you need a teacher's careful guidance. Otherwise you will definitely take many detours. Why you don't want to choose a teacher? Chu Luiyue wanted to say something but hesitated. Seeing his surprised expression, she shook her head with a smile. That's not it. Luiyue was just asking casually. There are many teachers in the academy, but I just came and don't know much about them, so I haven't thought about it yet. Bai Chen didn't suspect anything and laughed. I see. Actually, you don't have to be so conflicted. It won't be too late to make a choice after you reach Peach Garden and meet all the teachers. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. Then Luiyue can be at ease. Bai Chen winked. Actually, when you enter the academy, most students are like you and don't know much about the teachers. However, they don't have as much choice as you do. Your midterm assessment results were first in the warrior assessment and second in the Xian master assessment. Now all the teachers want to take you in as a disciple. It's all up to you. This kind of treatment isn't something that everyone can get. Only a rare genius like Chu Luiyue could make those fellows restless. Okay. Then I'll pack up and go later. Chu Luiyue's courtyard was a small two-story building. It was clean and tidy. She looked around and realized that everything she needed was already prepared. There was no need for her to bring anything. However, she still put away the things she brought and changed into the academy uniform. She pinned a nameplate on her left chest before leaving for Peach Garden. Bai Chen had already told her how to get to Peach Garden, so Chu Luiyue had a smooth journey. From afar, Chu Luiyue saw a simple and spacious courtyard. Just as she stood in front of the door, Chu Luiyue felt a heavy pressure coming at her. She narrowed her eyes but she didn't move. She just stood there. Whoosh. Just as that biting cold aura was about to reach her, it suddenly dissipated. The wind ruffled the hair on her forehead. Chu Luiyue's expression did not change. He cupped his fists and saluted. Student Chu Luiyue greets teachers. A moment later, a warm laugh was heard. I already said that this girl is really capable, yet you still insist on personally trying. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at by this girl? It was Sun Zhongyan's voice. Girl, come in. As soon as she finished speaking, the invisible force in front of Chu Luiyue completely dissipated with the wind, and she stepped in. Contrary to its name, there were no trees or flowers in the Peach Garden. There were only some rough stones that were placed messily. However, Chu Luiyue could tell at a glance that these stones were arranged into a special Xian formation. With this place as the center, the power of the Xian formation spread out in all directions. Once activated, the power of this Xian formation could not be underestimated. Chu Luiyue quickly retracted his gaze. Sun Zhongyan was sitting on a stone bench in the courtyard playing chess. When he saw her, he put down the chess piece in his hand. Chu Luiyue noticed that the chessboard was exactly the same as the one she used to take the Tianlu Academy exam. However, the chessboard today was filled with scattered chess pieces. It was obviously many times more complicated than the one she used to play that day. Girl, have you chosen your teacher? Chu Luiyue hesitated for a moment and shook her head. Teacher Bai Chen asked me to visit all the teachers first. As she spoke, she looked around and realized that there was no one else in the courtyard other than Elder Sunday. There were a few rather obscure auras in the room. Elder Sun, the other teachers? Chu Luiyue did not understand. Sun Zhongyan pointed at the chessboard. Everyone wanted to be your teacher, so we had a competition. Now they have all lost. I'm the only one left. He smiled at Chu Luiyue. What do you think of me being your teacher? Chu Luiyue was stunned. If she remembered correctly, Elder Sun seemed to be Si Ting's teacher too. Just as she was hesitating, a gray figure suddenly rushed over from afar. A deep voice exploded in the sky above the Peach Garden like thunder. I don't agree. Digression, Elder Yi expressed his disapproval. Today at 5 o'clock p.m., Please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 101. This voice sounded a little familiar. Chu Luiyue was thinking when she saw that figure rushing in front of Sun Zhongyan. His figure was a little stooped, and he was wearing a tattered cotton shirt. Who else could it be but Elder Yi? But why was he here? Sun Zhongyan was even more shocked than Chu Luiyue. Uncle Master. Why are you here? Uncle Master? Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. She had long guessed that Elder Ye's identity was not ordinary, but she did not expect him to be Sun Zhongyan's Uncle Master. Wasn't his seniority a little too high? Elder Yi panted and stared at Sun Zhongyan with wide eyes. Sun Zhongyan felt a little guilty under his gaze. Uncle Master, what's wrong? What's wrong? You still dare to ask me what's wrong? As Elder Yi spoke, he actually slapped him. You brat, how dare you snatch someone from your Uncle Master? You've grown bold. Sun Zhongyan did not dare to retaliate and could only cover his head. Uncle Master, why are you hitting me? Even if I ate a bear's heart and leopard's gall, I wouldn't dare to snatch someone from you. Seeing Sun Zhongyan, who was highly respected in the academy, being chased and beaten up, Chu Luiyue's mood suddenly became a little strange. She coughed and looked away. Uncle Master, if you want to hit me, you have to tell me clearly. Who exactly did I snatch from you? Sun Zhongyan shouted aggrievedly. Uncle Master did not show up all year round. Why did he hit people the moment he came? Elder Yi finally stopped and pointed at Chu Luiyue with a huff. The courtyard fell silent for a moment. Chu Luiyue keenly sensed that the concealed auras that were previously hidden fluctuated at almost the same time. Clearly, everyone was a little shocked by Elder Ye's words. Sun Zhongyan was stunned for a while. This Uncle Master, you want to take Chu Luiyue in as your disciple? But, you're a celestial physician. Chu Luiyue's talent as a warrior and a Xian master was indeed indisputable, but as a celestial physician she did not seem to be satisfactory. Sun Zhongyan glanced at Chu Luiyue and could not help but persuade her. Uncle Master, did you hear that this girl entered the academy because she passed all 3 examinations? You may not be aware, but she is much more than a celestial physician. And you? For this reason, why hadn't Martial Uncle accepted a single disciple for so many years? There? What do you know? Mr. Yi interrupted him impatiently. Chu Luiyue sighed in her heart. She had wanted to choose a teacher in a low-key manner and begin her cultivation in the academy. Now it seemed impossible. She did not expect Elder Yi to have such a relationship with Tianlu Academy. Moreover, he had rushed out at this time. This girl has been my disciple for a long time. You want to snatch her away now? Dream on. Elder Yi was still brooding. He looked at Sun Zhongyan as if he was looking at a thief. He walked to Chu Luiyue. Girl, these old fogies are all very bad. You can't be fooled by them. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Is it okay for you to be so direct? Elder Yi looked aggrieved as he spoke. Girl, why didn't you tell me you were coming to the academy? Do you really want to find someone else to be your master? Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. Master, you misunderstood. I was in seclusion for a few days. I went to the Chu family to look for you as soon as I came out. Who knew that I could not find you? I asked around and found out that such a big thing had happened. If I had been a little later, wouldn't you have become this bastard's disciple? Sun Zhongyan, who was being scolded, did not care about being aggrieved or defending himself. The conversation between Elder Yi and Chu Luiyue contained too much information, and he could not react in time. Chu Luiyue paused and did not say anything. If she had known that Elder Yi was from Tianlu Academy, she would not have gone through so much trouble. However, when she thought about how Elder Yi had hurriedly looked for her, she was not completely unaffected. Elder Yi looked at the girl in front of him. Actually, he did not have enough time to dote on her. How could he bear to scold her? His voice softened as he patted Chu Luiyue's arm. Luckily I came quickly. You can't do this in the future. Chu Luiyue responded with a bright smile. Yes, master. While the master and disciple were overjoyed, Sun Zhongyan and the other teachers in the room were all dumbfounded. Seeing that Elder Yi was about to take her away, Sun Zhongyan finally could not help but step forward and ask, Elder Yi, you really accepted this girl as your disciple? Elder Yi glanced at him. Didn't you hear her call me master? Sun Zhongyan choked. But her talent, As Elder Yi spoke, Chu Luiyue gently tugged at the corner of his shirt. Elder Ye's heart skipped a beat. He glanced at Chu Luiyue and guessed what she was thinking. It seemed like this girl did not want to expose herself. That's right. If she really exposed everything, it would be too eye-catching. Elder Yi coughed. Anyway, she passed the celestial physician exam and we hit it off very well. We have already gone through the ceremony. Whatever you say is useless. He looked like he had made up his mind. Sun Zhongyan felt that it was a pity. Chu Luiyue did not have any potential as a celestial physician. Even if she became his disciple, her future was bleak. Master, I'm actually very interested in Xian formations. I came to the academy this time to learn a thing or two. Chu Luiyue's words worried Elder Yi. You really want to be this brat's disciple? Chu Luiyue held back her laughter and shook her head. Since I already have a master, it's naturally not good for me to take someone else as my master. This disciple wants to cultivate as a Xian master on her own. Can you agree? On your own? Sun Zhongyan felt that this was unacceptable. Girl, you have to think carefully. If you don't have a teacher to guide you seriously, the path of a Xian master won't be easy. Chu Luiyue nodded insistently. Thank you, elder son, but I've already made up my mind. Master, you don't have any objections, right? Elder Yi wanted to say something but stopped. Actually, he had already vaguely guessed that perhaps Chu Luiyue really did not need a Xian master teacher. Just like her cultivation as a celestial physician, her realm was unfathomable, and she was more than qualified to be his teacher. Why would Master stop you from doing whatever you want to do? This matter is settled. Elder Yi waved his hand. Bring me the registration list. Very quickly, someone walked out of the room and brought a thick booklet. A few words were written in gold on the cover. Tianlu Academy. Elder Yi placed his hand on the booklet and released it. The pages actually flipped by themselves. Chu Luiyue stood at the side and could clearly see the names written on the pages. The students' names were all black, and the teachers' names were all red. The booklet flipped to the latest blank page and finally stopped. Elder Ye's expression froze. He stretched out his finger and wrote down a name on the page. Yi Zhiding. A dazzling golden glow shone brightly. His name was actually golden. Very quickly, Chu Luiyue saw a line of words appear below his name. Tianlu Academy's 65th Director. Digression. Today, Mujiagang mobile phone users please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 102. Elder Yi is the Dean of Tianlu Academy? Chu Luiyue looked at him in shock. This old man always wore torn cotton clothes and did not care about his appearance. If she did not see him with her own eyes, she would not have believed his true identity. Chu Luiyue could not help but recall the previous few times they met. Elder Yi had shamelessly chased after her to watch her refine demons. Her feelings became even more complicated. After all this time, the person with the most authority in Tianlu Academy was right in front of her. Elder Ye's expression was serious, which was rare for him. His fingers continued moving. Another name appeared on the page of the book. Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue realized that her name was actually red. It was the same color as the teachers in the academy. Then, a small line of words appeared below her name. Cultivation, Celestial Physician, Xian Master, Martial Artist. Due to the limitations of their talents, normal students would only cultivate one skill. However, Chu Luiyue was different. Elder Yi knew that her talents might be stronger than he had imagined. Thus, he simply wrote down all 3 skills for her. This would be much more convenient in the future. When he wrote down the last word, a golden ray of light flew out from Elder Ye's name and entered Chu Luiyue's nameplate on her left chest. Every student's nameplate has a trace of their teacher's power. Not only can it be used to identify one's identity, but it can also be used as a trump card in times of danger. Elder Yi explained as he let go of his hand. The page slowly closed on its own and returned to the teacher who had sent the book over. All right. Your name has been registered. From now on, you will be my true disciple. Elder Yi looked at Chu Luiyue emotionally. He could not hide the excitement in his heart. Even though Chu Luiyue had already served him tea previously, only the 2 of them knew about it at that time. Now that both of their names were written on the academy's nameplate, it would be very different. In the future, everyone would know that Chu Luiyue was his disciple. Thinking of this, Elder Yi was elated. He had lived for most of his life. Many people had advised him to take in disciples, but he had rejected them all because he found it troublesome. Now, there was finally someone who caught his eye, and he was even a genius that was hard to come by in 100 years. All of a sudden, he had surpassed everyone else. How could he not be happy? Let's go. We haven't seen each other for such a long time. I have many things to say to you. After finishing his business, Mr. Yi left with Chu Luiyue, leaving Sun Zhongyan and the others looking at each other. The peach garden was silent for a long time before a helpless laugh could be heard. To think that we've been fighting for so long. In the end, he's already the dean's student. Yi Lao originally wanted to bring Chu Luiyue to his place, but he suddenly remembered that he had been away for a long time and that his place might not have been cleaned yet. In the end, he followed Chu Luiyue back. Fortunately, at this time, most of the students in the academy had already started their classes or cultivation. On their way back, they didn't meet anyone. As soon as they entered the room, Mr. Yi immediately asked, "Little girl, why didn't you tell me earlier that you wanted to come to the academy? She even had to go through so much trouble to take 3 exams. I heard that you also participated in the midterm assessment a few days ago? Did someone make things difficult for you? Don't hesitate to tell me. I'll definitely help you vent your anger." Chu Luiyue poured him a cup of tea leisurely as she poured him a cup of tea. "Speak slowly. There's no need to rush." Mr. Yi stopped drinking tea and finally had some time to rest. Chu Luiyue briefly told him what happened during this period of time. Mr. Yi had heard some rumors before, but after listening to Chu Luiyue, he finally understood what happened. So many things happened during this period of time. "Little girl, didn't you say that if you ran into any trouble, you could just come to me? As your master, I couldn't help you at all?" Mr. Yi was filled with guilt. In his view, Chu Luiyue was still a child. Who knew how many difficulties she had to go against the Chu clan and the crown prince? However, Chu Luiyue smiled nonchalantly and teased him. "At that time, I didn't know your true identity. If I knew, how could I not come to you?" This sentence made Mr. Yi even more embarrassed. It was my negligence. He had a carefree personality and never liked to deal with the school's affairs. He usually left it to Sun Zhongyan and the others. Although he was the dean in name, he had been running around outside all these years. There weren't many people who actually saw him. He often forgot his identity. However, you don't have to worry. Isn't everything fine now? Chu Luiyue comforted. Mr. Yi restrained his expression and shook his head. "Little girl, you might not know this, but the crown prince is narrow-minded and haggles over every detail. Now that you've humiliated him, he definitely won't let it go." Buzz. Before Mr. Yi could finish speaking, a buzzing sound came from outside. The two of them looked outside together but didn't see anything. However, Mr. Ye's expression didn't relax. Instead, his frown deepened. He immediately stood up. "Little girl, I have something to do and will leave first. I'll come to see you another day." With that, his feet moved and his figure quickly disappeared. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction he left and shifted her gaze. Not far away, the majestic Jiuyou Tower stood quietly. That strange movement just now seemed to be coming from there. However, that movement was very weak. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to detect it. She could sense it because she was very sensitive to the changes in heaven and earth force. Although she hadn't regained the strength of her previous life, her senses were still there. If she remembered correctly, Tianlu Academy seemed to be under Jiuyou Tower. Knock, knock, knock. A knock on the door interrupted Chu Luiyue's thoughts. "Who is it?" she asked as she went to open the door. A familiar face appeared outside the door. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. "Si Ting? Why are you here?" Si Ting didn't seem to expect her to come so quickly. He was stunned for a moment but quickly recovered. "You've already chosen your teacher?" Chu Luiyue nodded. Si Ting paused but didn't ask her who she had chosen. "There's a meditation class this morning. Mr. Dongfang asked me to come and see if you're ready." "Meditation class?" Chu Luiyue was a little confused. Si Ting explained. "Although most of the Shen Master's cultivation is done independently, there are common classes. This class is taught by Mr. Dongfang." Chu Luiyue then understood that Si Ting was here to ask her to go to class. She sized him up and couldn't help but tease him. "Mr. Dongfang actually sent you over for such a small matter?" Si Ting averted his gaze, his handsome face still expressionless. "It's just that I solved the first round first, so I had time to come. If you're ready, come with me." Chu Luiyue didn't ask much and followed him to class. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 103. The meditation class was held at the Autumn Frost Garden. Chu Luiyue followed Si Ting and soon arrived at their destination. Standing outside the door, Si Ting said in a low voice, "Meditation classes are usually used to cultivate one's control of the heaven and earth force." Chu Luiyue nodded. A Shen master's cultivation was limited to these few aspects. The two of them had just reached the door when it opened automatically. A deep middle-aged man's voice sounded. "Come in." Chu Luiyue followed Si Ting and entered. It was a very spacious room and a square-faced man was standing at the front. "Greetings, Teacher Dongfang. Si Ting said. Chu Luiyue immediately understood that this person was the meditation class's teacher, Dong Fangqing. You guys came quickly. Dong Fangqing nodded and his gaze quickly landed on Chu Luiyue with curiosity. You are Chu Luiyue? Chu Luiyue bowed. Greetings, teacher Dongfang. Dong Fangqing's gaze lingered on her nameplate for a moment. He actually wanted to ask her who her teacher was, but with so many students around, it was not appropriate for him to ask. He raised his hand and pointed. You can sit next to Si Ting first. Chu Luiyue looked in the direction he was pointing. There were dozens of stone tables in the room, and a student was sitting on each of them. There was a chessboard on the table in front of each of them. Almost all of the students were staring at the chessboard seriously, thinking hard. Even when they heard the two of them enter, they only looked up and quickly lowered their heads to continue studying the xian array on the chessboard. The two tables in the middle were empty. Obviously, one belonged to Si Ting and the other to her. When she walked closer, she saw a clear 2 carved on the table. She looked sideways and saw the 1 carved on Si Ting's table. It seemed like it was arranged according to the midterm assessment ranking. Chu Luiyue had just stepped onto the stone table when a chessboard suddenly appeared on the originally empty table in front of her. There was a xian array on the chessboard. Today's lesson is very simple. As long as you can find the formation cores of these 2 xian formations, you will pass. Dong Fangqing looked at Chu Luiyue with anticipation. The 3 people who spend the shortest amount of time will be rewarded. He wasn't there during the midterm assessment that day, so he didn't know what exactly happened and how Chu Luiyue obtained second place in the Xian cultivator competition. Old Master Sun and the others were exaggerating. They even said that Chu Luiyue was as talented as Si Ting. He wanted to see if that was the case. Chu Luiyue looked down at the Xian formation in front of him. This level of Xian formation posed no difficulty to her. The moment she saw it, she immediately thought of a way to break it. But of course he couldn't pass it so quickly. Sensing Dong Fangqing's gaze on him, Chu Luiyue knew that he was testing him. She looked at Si Ting and asked in a low voice, "Sighting? How long did you take for the first round?" Dong Fangqing's eyes lit up. Chu Luiyue wanted to challenge Si Ting? Si Ting looked at the calm expression on the girl's face and guessed what she was thinking. 1 hour. Chu Luiyue nodded thoughtfully. Based on Si Ting's age, it was already very good that he could reach this standard. Then try to be faster for the second round. I might be able to surpass you. Chu Luiyue blinked. If Si Ting could pass it faster, she would waste less time. Otherwise, it would be difficult to endure the few hours here. Si Ting looked at the sly look in her eyes and nodded after a moment of silence. Okay. Why, Chu Luiyue, are you challenging Si Ting? A girl's voice suddenly sounded from behind. Chu Luiyue turned around and saw that the person who spoke was a girl who looked about 15 or 16 years old. She looked beautiful, and her phoenix eyes were filled with undisguised pride and hostility as she looked at Chu Luiyue. Hostility? Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. She did not know this girl. Why was she treating her like this? Gu Mingzhu, why are you so nosy? It's normal that Lu Yu wants to challenge my brother. After all, he came in second place. How can you, who came in fourth place, have the right to speak? Si Yang, who was sitting behind Chu Luiyue, said impatiently. Hearing this name, Chu Luiyue immediately knew who this girl was. She was the second daughter of the Gu family, Gu Mingzhu. Because she was the daughter of the first wife and was a Xian master, she was very favored in the Gu family. Gu Mingzhu's face turned cold after being rebuked by Si Yang. I'm just asking. Why are you so protective of her? Si Yang snorted. You know very well what you are thinking. If you want to challenge my brother, wait until you come in second place. Gu Mingzhu was so angry that her face turned pale. She gritted her teeth and said, who knows how she came in second place? What can someone who became a Xian master be capable of? The cultivation of a Xian master was very particular. Even if one had good talent, without the correct and patient guidance of a teacher, one would not be able to achieve anything. Chu Luiyue had been living a life worse than a servant in the Chu family for the past few years. Now that she was in her teens, her talent as a Xian master was discovered. It was too late. The results from last time must be a coincidence. Si Yang's tone was a little harsh. What? Are you suspecting that elder son and the rest made a mistake? He came in third place. If Gu Mingzhu suspected that Chu Luiyue came in second place, wouldn't that mean that he was not capable enough? Gu Mingzhu did not dare to say anything else. The Si Yang had always been the most mischievous. She could not be bothered to argue with him. Gu Mingzhu looked at Si Ting, feeling wronged. However, the handsome young man did not even look at her. It was as if he did not care about what had just happened. Gu Mingzhu bit her lip. She felt even worse. Si Ting was a quiet and introverted person with an indifferent personality. She thought that he had always been like that. Therefore, even though she had been rejected time and time again, she still had a glimmer of hope. However, Chu Liyue's appearance made her feel threatened. Since when had Si Ting ever cared about anyone else? However, when teacher Dongfang mentioned that he wanted to send someone to bring Chu Liyue over, Si Ting actually took the initiative to speak up. Although Si Ting said that he had time to go because he had solved the first round, Gu Mingzhu did not think that way. When Chu Liyue spoke to Si Ting just now, she could clearly feel that Si Ting's attitude towards her was different. This was a woman's intuition. Therefore this made Gu Mingzhu dislike Chu Liyue even more. She placed one hand on the chessboard. Because she was using too much force, her knuckles turned pale. Chu Liyue, do you dare to compete with me? If you lose, you have to give up your second place to me. If I lose, I will give you the dragon string array. How about that? The surrounding people were all shocked and raised their heads to look over. The dragon string array was a legendary 5th level Xian array. Gu Mingzhu was indeed the second young mistress of the Gu family. She was so generous. No one would reject such a prize. However, unexpectedly, Chu Liyue did not look excited at all. Instead, he shook his head and smiled kindly. Let's not. After all, I really don't like to bully others. Chapter 104. How could Gu Mingzhu not understand what Chu Liyue meant? He was obviously looking down on her. She was so angry that she laughed. Chu Liyue, don't tell me you're scared? Chu Liyue shrugged. If you think so, then so be it. Gu Mingzhu choked. She did not expect Chu Liyue to be so stubborn. She raised her voice in defiance. Then I'll add a Greenwood Xian formation. Do you agree or not? The room was in an uproar. Greenwood Xian formation. That was a Xian formation that would not lose to the dragon string formation. Gu Mingzhu was willing to take out 2 level 5 Xian formations just to compete with Chu Liyue. She was really putting in a lot of effort. Chu Liyue finally turned around and looked at her lazily. Really? I'm the second lady of the Gu family. Of course I'm serious. Gu Mingzhu raised her chin. Chu Liyue nodded. She was not a fool. Why would she not take advantage of the other party's initiative? Gu Mingzhu was delighted when she saw that Chu Liyue had finally agreed. However, she was immediately disdainful. She sneered. Looks like you didn't agree just now because the stakes were too small. In other words, Chu Liyue was obviously greedy for money. Chu Liyue smiled and admitted it. It's good that you know. If you want to ask someone to teach you, you should at least show some sincerity. Otherwise, she really did not want to waste her time on this kind of person. Gu Mingzhu was so angry that she was about to explode. However, she suddenly felt someone looking at her. Was Si Ting. Gu Mingzhu suppressed the anger in her heart and returned to her usual cold and arrogant attitude. Then let's use the 2 Xian formations that Mr. Dongfang set up as a competition. Whoever solves them first will win. Gu Mingzhu, how dare you say that? You've been here for almost 2 hours. Chu Liyue just arrived. Aren't you bullying him? Xiang could not stand it anymore. Gu Mingzhu looked at Chu Liyue and sneered. Unraveling a profound formation can easily take several hours. Sometimes it can take a whole day to unravel it. Chu Liyue was late because of himself. Can you blame me? What's more, she had gotten second place previously. She wouldn't be so calculative about this little bit of time, right? Chu Liyue, what do you think? Chu Liyue waved his hand carelessly. I'll let you. His casual attitude annoyed Gu Mingzhu once again. Let's start. After she finished speaking, she lowered her head and once again focused on studying the profound formation on the chessboard in front of her. This time she must win. Chu Liyue retracted his gaze and looked at Si Ting. Si Ting felt inexplicably nervous when he saw her. Chu Liyue smirked. This trouble was obviously caused by Si Ting. However, on account of how Si Ting had helped her before, she did not want to be calculative about this. Si Ting was the first to look away. Chu Liyue raised his brows and looked at the profound formation in front of him. Imperial Palace, Imperial Study. Emperor Zhouwen leaned against the chair and looked at Rong Jin, who was standing with his hands by his side, expressionlessly. I'll say it one last time. Let's forget about this matter. Don't pursue it anymore. A deep and heavy voice sounded in the empty study room, with the dignity and majesty of a person in a high position. Rong Jin clenched his fists in his sleeves. In actual fact, he had already thought of this answer before he came. However, he really did not understand. Father Zhenzhen's injury is really strange. I've always been the one managing the hunting ground, and such a situation has never happened before. Why did something like this happen once Zhenbao Pavilion took over? If we don't investigate carefully, how can Zhen be at peace? Emperor Jianghu looked at him solemnly. Crown Prince, are you blaming me? Rong Jin's heart tightened and he immediately knelt down. I don't dare. Zhen Bao Pavilion tried to stop her multiple times, but Zhen insisted on going in to hunt high-level fiends. She can only blame herself for this. At the end of the day, I've spoiled her too much. All these years, I've always let her do whatever she wants and I've never punished her. This is what led to today's situation. Emperor Jianghu sighed deeply and closed his eyes. How can my heart not hurt when her pearl of essence is broken? I've already sent Chu Ning to lead the Imperial Guards to search for the high-level fiend that injured Zhen. The few people who followed Zhen and didn't protect her that day have been punished. What else do you want to investigate? The last sentence made Rong Jin's heart skip a beat. Even though Emperor Jianghu wasn't looking at him, he felt that his thoughts had been seen through. I just feel that, I've already told you not to have any ideas about Zhen Bao Pavilion the last time, but it seems like you didn't listen at all. Emperor Jianghu opened his eyes tiredly and spoke slowly. Do you want to investigate for Zhen or do you want to investigate for yourself? Father. Rong Jin was shocked and instantly felt that Emperor Jianghu's eyes were glaring at him like a will-o'-the-wisp, making him tremble in fear. Father, you're wise. I don't have any selfish motives. Emperor Jianghu was unmoved. He knew exactly what Rong Jin was thinking and doing. The father-son duo, one sitting and one kneeling, were in a stalemate. The atmosphere in the room gradually became cold and stiff. After a while, Rong Jin finally lowered his head. Father, I just want an answer. What kind of background does Zhen Bao Pavilion have? Even you are so protective of it. I put in so much effort for that hunting ground, but it was snatched away by them in the blink of an eye. I really can't take it lying down. You're the crown prince. How can a mere hunting ground make you like this? Actually, you care more about your pride as the crown prince, right? Emperor Jianghu's words hit the nail on the head, and it made Rong Jin's face turn pale. If they didn't help Chu Liwei, I wouldn't. You were the one who wanted to cancel the marriage agreement. Emperor Jianghu shook his head. He knew that Rong Jin wasn't broad-minded enough, but the recent events really disappointed him. If Chu Liwei had displayed his shocking talent back then, the situation today would have been very different. You can go back. Emperor Jianghu waved his hands. Rong Jin wanted to say more, but he swallowed his words when he saw Emperor Jianghu's expression. Yes. He stood up and left. Just as he reached the door, Emperor Jianghu's voice sounded from behind him. I heard that Chu Xianmin from the Chu family hurt her face a few days ago. Go and take a look if you have the time. Rong Jin turned around, and an ominous feeling surfaced in his heart. Rumors are spreading like wildfire in the imperial city. Given the current situation, you should accept her as soon as possible. Father, Chu Xianmin and I don't. As the crown prince, you should think about what you should do. Yes. Rong Jin returned to Crown Prince Mansion without saying a word, but his face was frighteningly cold. Xuanhuan, who had been waiting for a long time, felt his heart skip a beat. He thought to himself that something was amiss and looked down in panic. Rong Jin stood still in front of Xuanhuan. Go and tell the Chu family to prepare. I'll accept Chu Xianmin into the mansion in a few days. Xuanhuan was dazed. Your Highness, is that a secondary consort's gift? Rong Jin sneered. Secondary consort? Does she even deserve it? Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 105. 3 days later, Crown Prince Mansion will welcome her as a concubine. Xuanhuan asked hesitantly. Your Highness, third Chu Missy is the Chu family's legitimate daughter after all. Isn't it inappropriate for her to be a concubine? That's already giving her too much credit. Rong Jin's expression was cold. There was no affection in his eyes at the mention of Chu Xianmin. This series of events had already caused him to lose all face. It was already a huge favor that he was still willing to give Chu Xianmin a place in Crown Prince Mansion. Xuanhuan looked at Rong Jin's expression and knew that the matter was settled. There was no turning back, so he did not say anything else. Yes. Rong Jin heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to walk in, he saw that Xuanhuan was still standing at the same spot with a strange expression. He could not help but frown. Why are you still standing there? Xuanhuan bowed and whispered, Your Highness, Your Highness. The people we sent to investigate Zhen Bao Pavilion are gone. Rong Jin was shocked and his frown deepened. How is that possible? Those people were all stage 4 warriors. He knew that Zhen Bao Pavilion was not to be trifled with, so he did not hold back. Who would have thought? Your Highness, those people were just secretly investigating Zhenbao Pavilion, and they were assassinated one after another. The assassins were very strong and did not leave any traces behind. We can't even find any evidence to prove that they did it. Rong Jin clenched his fists, and his voice was almost squeezed out from between his teeth. You mean to say that this time, this consort can only suffer in silence and swallow this anger? Your Highness, I didn't mean that. Xuanhuan hurriedly knelt on the ground. Rong Jin closed his eyes and thought for a long time before he sneered. If we can't do it secretly, then we'll do it openly. Xuanhuan was worried. Your Highness, didn't His Majesty say that he won't investigate anymore? If you do it openly, I'm afraid it will be difficult to explain to His Majesty. Of course I won't get involved in this. However, Zhenbao Pavilion has been operating in the Imperial City for many years. Who knows if there are any problems with their private accounts? It just so happens that the people from the Ministry of Personnel Affairs have some free time recently. They can investigate all these in the Imperial City. The Chu family. Chu Yen and Lu Yao stared at Xuanhuan with their mouths agape. They couldn't believe their ears. Lord Song, you said earlier that the Crown Prince wants Minmin to enter the residence as a concubine? Xuanhuan smiled. Yes. His Highness the Crown Prince has always been fond of third Miss Chu and has long wanted to marry her. Both of you know this. Although time was a little tight, the Crown Prince had said that third Miss Chu's injuries had not yet healed. For the sake of her health, everything should be kept simple. But don't worry, although the rules and etiquette are simple, His Highness will definitely not mistreat third Miss Chu. Chu Yen and Lu Yao trembled in anger. Lord Song, no matter what, my Min Min is still the young miss of the Chu family. Even if she is injured and can't be the official wife, she should at least be the concubine. A mere concubine, isn't that too much? Chu Yan's anger was almost uncontrollable and his tone was a little harsh. The smile on Xuanhuan's face did not change, but it became colder. Haha, Lord Chu Yan, don't you know the reason behind this? Third Miss Chu's face was injured, and she might not recover for the rest of her life. The Crown Prince's official wife and concubine will have to go to the royal family's ancestral hall to greet their ancestors. Is it appropriate for third Miss Chu to do this? Besides, not only did third Miss Chu hurt her face, but she also hurt the Crown Prince's reputation. Now that the Crown Prince is willing to give her the status of a concubine, he is already very magnanimous. Both of you should discuss this properly and not spoil the Crown Prince's good intentions. Who could not hear the threat in his words? Chu Yen and Lu Yao looked at each other and felt very aggrieved. They only had one daughter, Chu Xianmin. Originally, they hoped that she would be able to marry the Crown Prince and become the Crown Prince's concubine, but it was obviously impossible now. There was no time to prepare anything in 3 days. It was really embarrassing to marry him like this. Who knew how the people in the Imperial City would laugh at her? I'll marry him. Just as the few of them were in a deadlock, a woman's voice suddenly came from outside the door. It was Chu Xianmin. At this moment she was wearing a veil that covered most of her hair and face, only revealing a pair of eyes. However, her eyes were no longer proud and arrogant like before. Instead, they had a sinister coldness that made people feel uneasy. Xuanhuan muttered in his heart, this third Miss Chu seems to be different from before. Minmin, why did you come out? Lu Yao hurried over and sized her up worriedly. Just now, you heard everything? Chu Xianmin nodded. I heard it. I'm willing to marry him. Xuanhuan smiled. Then, third Miss Chu, please prepare at home and enter the residence in 3 days. With that, he did not stay any longer and turned to leave. When Xuanhuan's figure disappeared, Chu Yen regained his senses and looked at Chu Xianmin with a complicated gaze. Minmin, you have to think carefully. You'll be a concubine if you go. Chu Xianmin laughed at herself. What can I do now that I'm like this? The few of them fell silent. The Crown Prince Mansion doesn't have a consort or a secondary consort. There are only a few concubines. I won't be bullied if I go. Besides, I don't intend to be a concubine for the rest of my life. Lu Yao's eyes lit up. Minmin, you mean? Although my looks are disfigured, I still have my talent and abilities. Besides, I can borrow the Crown Prince's power if I become his woman. I haven't forgotten who caused me to become like this. Chu Liwei, let's settle our scores bit by bit. Meditation class. The room was very quiet. Everyone was focused on studying the chessboard in front of them. A crisp sound was heard. Gu Mingzhu had solved the first Shen formation. Dong Fangqing glanced at her and was surprised. He did not expect Gu Mingzhu to solve the first Shen formation after Si Ting. When Si Yang heard the sound, he could not help but turn around and look. He felt even more frustrated. Gu Mingzhu raised her chin proudly and looked at Chu Luiyue in front of her. Such a simple Xian formation is just a piece of cake. Chu Luiyue heard her and turned to look at her. You solved the first Xian formation? Why are you surprised? It can't be that such a simple Xian formation could trap you, right? Gu Mingzhu's eyes were filled with mockery. Actually, as long as you have experienced systematic learning and guidance from a famous teacher, you will know the characteristics of Xian formations. Naturally, you will be able to solve them quickly. However, I don't think you have seen any decent Xian formations. It's normal that you don't know where to start. Chu Luiyue nodded seriously. I have not seen many Xian formations like this. She had stopped playing after she was 6 years old. Of course, she had not seen many of them. Gu Mingzhu rolled her eyes. Why don't I wait for you to solve the first Xian formation before we proceed to the second Xian formation? I don't want someone to say that I won disgracefully when they lose. Chu Luiyue rejected her suggestion, and her lips curved up. That's not necessary. With that, she turned around and placed a chess piece on the chessboard. The sound of the Xian formation being solved could be heard. I've been waiting for you for a long time, so I don't want to trouble you to wait for me. Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 106. Everyone's jaws dropped. Chu Luiyue solved the first Xian formation. Wasn't this too easy? If she remembered correctly, it had only been an hour since she came in. She actually followed Gu Mingzhu and passed the first round. No, she had already solved it long ago. She was just waiting for Gu Mingzhu. Gu Mingzhu's smug smile froze on her face. Her eyes slowly widened as she stared at the chessboard in front of Chu Luiyue. You also solved the first round? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Isn't it obvious? Gu Mingzhu felt her mind go blank. She was completely stunned when she saw Chu Luiyue's nonchalant expression. How was this possible? This Xian formation was very complicated. Without some skills, it was impossible to solve it so easily. She had said it was simple just now. In fact, she had exaggerated it to mock Chu Luiyue. If it was really so easy, the dozens of people in the room would not have racked their brains for so long. However, this did not seem to be a problem for Chu Luiyue at all. Chu Luiyue is too amazing. Didn't she just come in not long ago? She solved it so quickly? Although Gu Mingzhu was one step ahead of her, if we calculate carefully, Chu Luiyue used less time. Hey, can't you guys tell that Chu Luiyue already thought of the answer long ago? She was waiting for Gu Mingzhu on purpose. I think Gu Mingzhu will definitely lose this round. Tisk, a rumor has it that she used to be a good-for-nothing. How did she become so powerful in the blink of an eye? Her talent is probably comparable to Si Ting's. Gu Mingzhu's expression turned even uglier when she heard the whispers around her. Continue. As the second young mistress of the Gu family, she was used to being arrogant. How could she admit defeat at this time? Chu Luiyue did not care. She turned back to look at the chessboard. After the first Xian formation was solved, the chess pieces on it changed automatically and formed the second Xian formation. Gu Mingzhu retracted her gaze in annoyance, but a trace of uneasiness surfaced in her heart. Chu Luiyue, how could he be so strong? She had just stepped onto the path of a mystic cultivator and clearly didn't have the qualifications to hire a teacher to teach her, so how could she be more outstanding than her? At first, he thought that the midterm examination was a coincidence. But now, he really couldn't afford to be careless. Gu Mingzhu took a deep breath and tried her best to focus all of her attention on the second profound formation. She wanted to break it as soon as possible and defeat Chu Luiyue. However, her mind was in a mess and her mind was in a mess. She couldn't calm down at all. The more it was like this, the more anxious she became. Looking at the profound formation on the chessboard, the more complicated and difficult it was to decipher. Unknowingly, beads of sweat appeared on her forehead, and her eyes were slightly red. Dong Fangqing, who was standing in front of her, saw her expression the clearest. He couldn't help but shake his head. Gu Mingzhu's talent was indeed not bad, and she had the right to be arrogant. However, if she was too arrogant, she would become arrogant. She didn't think about how the Xian formation in the forest during the midterm examination was personally set up by Elder Sun and the rest. How could she have passed it by luck? It would be difficult for Gu Mingzhu to defeat Chu Luiyue. Time always passed very quickly when she was deep in thought. Gradually, the sunlight outside the window turned from warm to gentle and then to dim. Chu Luiyue looked up and realized that it was already evening. She had already spent close to 3 hours here. Thinking of this, her gaze turned and landed on Si Ting, who was beside her. His back was straight and his expression was cold. He was focused on the profound formation in front of him. The light shone on his face, outlining a sharp and clear outline. This youth was like a sharp blade that was ready to be unsheathed at any time. He always had a cold aura around him. Although he looked noble, restrained, and polite, Chu Liyue secretly felt that this person was not as simple as he looked on the surface. Si Ting felt Chu Liyue's gaze on him. His entire body tensed up, and the hand that was holding the chess piece froze for a moment. Was she getting impatient from waiting? Si Ting couldn't help but think in his heart. Then he felt a strange emotion. Her talent was indeed stronger than he had imagined. If he had guessed correctly, she had already solved the second Xian formation. However, for some reason she hadn't taken the final step. It was as if she was waiting for him. Si Ting pursed his lips and looked at the profound formation. Then he turned his wrist slightly, and the chess piece changed its direction. It landed in a position that he hadn't planned to move to just now. Crack. The second Xian formation was solved. The chess pieces on the chessboard in front of him suddenly flew up. They were black and white and automatically fell into the chess box beside him. Dong Fangqing looked at Si Ting in surprise. I thought that you would have to spend 4 hours on this. I didn't expect. Si Ting, you seem to have improved very quickly recently. Si Ting nodded slightly. I happened to see a similar Xian formation a few days before I started. That's why I solved it faster. Dong Fangqing stroked his beard in understanding. Haha, I heard that you've been borrowing Xian formation diagrams from the library recently. Now it seems like it's quite useful. Alright. Since you've already passed these 2 stages, you can end class early today. Many students looked at Si Ting enviously after he said that. The first place was indeed different. Not only could they leave in the middle, but they could also end class early. They didn't know how long they would have to solve it here. Xiyang couldn't help but hold his head and complain. Big brother, why do I feel like you're even more powerful than before? Do you still want others to live? Si Ting stood up and looked at him nonchalantly. You can be like this if you work harder. Xiyang couldn't help but mutter softly, do you think everyone is like you? You can solve it just because you've seen something similar? If that's the case, wouldn't everyone be a genius? Those who could enter Tianlu Academy were all rather talented. However, there would always be someone better than them. When everyone gathered together, there would still be a distinction between the strong and the weak. Without a doubt, Si Ting was one of the outstanding ones. How can there be so many perverts in this world? Crack. Before Xiyang could finish speaking, another sound rang out in the room. Everyone perked up. Another person solved the second stage. When they looked in the direction of the voice at the same time, they were shocked on the spot again. That was because the sound came from the chessboard in front of Chu Liyue. The person who solved the second Xian formation right after Si Ting was actually Chu Liyue? Dong Fangqing was also taken aback. He unknowingly put down his crossed arms and quickly walked to Chu Liyue's side. Almost at the same time, the chess pieces on Chu Liyue's chessboard flew up and fell down on their own. Everyone no longer had any doubts when they saw this scene. Chu Liyue had indeed solved 2 Xian formations consecutively. Chu Liyue clapped his hands and stood up. He stretched his sore shoulders. It's finally over. Si Ting saw the relief on her face from the corner of his eye. The expression in his eyes softened, but it was fleeting as if it had never appeared. No one noticed. Xiyang looked at her in a daze. He finally could not help but curse softly. Damn pervert. Chu Liyue glanced at him. Xiyang trembled and retracted his neck. For some reason he felt that Chu Liyue had an indescribable aura that made people not dare to provoke him. Chu Liyue did not mind. He turned to look at Gu Mingzhu and smiled. Second young Mistress Gu, the 2 Xian formation diagrams that you promised earlier are mine now, right? Gu Mingzhu's face turned pale. To the Gu family those diagrams were rare treasures. She dared to use them as a wager because she was impulsive and confident that she could beat Chu Liyue. But now she had lost. What should she do? Did Chu Liyue really take advantage of her? Gu Mingzhu's expression changed. She suddenly thought of something and glared at Chu Liyue. Si Ting just solved it and you also solved it. How can there be such a coincidence in this world? Chu Liyue, you must have cheated. Digression. It should be up soon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 107. Chu Liyue raised his eyebrows. Cheating? Are you saying that I was able to solve the Xian formation because I saw how Si Ting moved? Gu Mingzhu, Si Ting and I are right in front of Mr. Dongfang. If we were to play any tricks he would have seen it clearly. Are you suspecting that Mr. Dongfang is covering for me? Dong Fangqing frowned and looked at Gu Mingzhu. Gu Mingzhu, this is not a place for you to fool around. I'm not fooling around. After saying that, Gu Mingzhu felt a little regretful. Saying that in front of teacher Dongfang, wasn't she just making things difficult for herself? But what could she do now that she had said it? She gritted her teeth and made up her mind. Mr. Dongfang, don't you find it strange? Why did Chu Liwei succeed right after Si Ting? Isn't this too strange? Everyone looked at each other and were somewhat suspicious. Dongfang Qing was so angry that he laughed. Gu Mingzhu, this is not the first time you have attended classes here. Don't you know whether you can cheat or not by seeing how the people around you solve the Shen formation? The room was silent for a moment. Although everyone was sitting next to each other, they were all quite a distance away from each other. It was not that easy to see what was going on around them. More importantly, this chessboard was used to train their ability to solve Shen formations. Usually, only the people in front of them could see clearly. From other positions they could only see blurry shadows. Chu Liwei and Si Ting were sitting next to each other, but from Chu Liwei's position, they should not be able to see anything. Si Yang laughed out loud and mocked, "You're right. Gu Mingzhu, you are not far from my brother. You can see how he moved just by looking up. Why didn't you solve the second Shen formation?" Gu Mingzhu's face was red and she could not speak. Although I don't want to admit it, this pervert is quite talented. Do you think that elder son and the rest are so easily fooled? Si Yang remembered clearly that elder son was full of praise for Chu Liwei that day. At first he didn't want to believe it, but later he realized that Chu Liwei was indeed not an ordinary person. Although he couldn't compare to him, he was willing to admit that he was powerful. How could he be like Gu Mingzhu? Gu Mingzhu, are you a sore loser? Gu Mingzhu glared at Si Yang. Shut up. Chu Liwei smiled amiably. Second Miss Gu has a noble status, so she's definitely not someone who doesn't know what to say. Everyone present clearly heard the 2 scrolls of Shen formation diagrams mentioned earlier. If second Miss Gu were to renege on her debt, wouldn't that be too shameless? Who are you calling shameless? How could Gu Mingzhu not tell that Chu Liwei was scolding her? She immediately became anxious. Chu Liwei blinked in surprise. Second Miss Gu, what do you mean? Are you really not going to fulfill your end of the bet? Chapter 108. Chu Liwei raised her eyebrows slightly, took a step forward, and said with a smile that was not a smile, "What is your highness trying to do?" Rong Xiu looked at her crafty black eyes that were like a fox's, sighed softly and laughed softly. "I really don't know what to do with you." Before he finished speaking, his body moved, and he quickly grabbed both of her wrists and then used one hand. Chapter 108, Waiting for You Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation. Please wait for a moment. After the content has been updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 109. Although the residence that the academy had arranged for Chu Liwei was not big, there were still spare rooms. Seeing that Rong Xiu had once again snatched her bed, Chu Liwei was no longer angry. She had even gotten used to it. She went to the room next door, closed the door and listened carefully for a while. She did not detect any movement in the room next door, so she calmed down. Since Rong Xiu could sneak into Tianlu Academy without anyone noticing, he would not be discovered so easily. She was not worried about this. It was already late, but Chu Liwei did not go to bed immediately. Instead, she sat cross-legged, held her breath, and focused on absorbing the heaven and earth force. Waves of invisible energy gradually merged into her body, passing through her limbs and bones before silently flowing into the water droplet in her dantian. Ever since she had forged this special pill of origin and officially embarked on the path of cultivation again, Chu Liwei had not relaxed for even a day. No matter how busy or tired she was, she would persevere in her cultivation and not waste a single drop of time. Although no one forced her, there was always a voice in her heart that kept reminding her that she still had many things to do. Being reborn was a great opportunity. She had to make herself stronger as soon as possible. After an unknown period of time, Chu Liwei finally opened her eyes slowly and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. She could feel the aura in her body growing stronger day by day. This body had the Daijingyuan meridian after all, so it was much faster than ordinary people when cultivating. However, it was still not enough. She had been born with the Tianjingyuan meridian in her previous life. Her talent was extraordinary, and the Daijingyuan meridian she had now could not compare to it. However, she also knew that this matter could not be rushed. Her former enemy's status was much higher than hers, so she could only plan slowly. Previously, Si Yang had said that the first place of the midterm assessment would have the chance to meet the envoy from the Tianling dynasty. Calculating the time, it should be soon. Chu Liwei finally wrote down a Shen formation diagram in her mind before finally resting. The next day, Chu Liwei woke up early in the morning. After tidying up, she remembered that Rong Xiu was still sleeping in the room next door. She walked over and knocked on the door. No one agreed. He pushed the door open and saw that she had already left. Chu Luiyue face-palmed, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. The dignified Prince Li seemed to really treat her place as an inn. However, it would be troublesome if he stayed here at this time. Chu Luiyue no longer paid attention to these, turned around and went out. Hey, have you heard? Yesterday, during the Xian Master's meditation class, Gu Mingzhu challenged Chu Luiyue and lost 2 level 5 Xian formation diagrams. Are you serious? Wasn't Gu Mingzhu's talent also very strong? How could he lose to Chu Luiyue? Of course it's real. This matter had already spread throughout the entire academy. Gu Mingzhu is talented, but have you forgotten that Chu Luiyue got second place in the midterm assessment on his first day here? However, she really has guts. With Gu Mingzhu's status, she actually didn't give her any face. She didn't even give face to the crown prince, let alone others. I think this Chu Luiyue is really not someone to be trifled with. Chu Luiyue arrived at Jiuyou Tower and heard the discussions from afar. After seeing her figure, these voices quickly disappeared. Everyone looked at her with an uneasy expression. Perhaps many people from the Xian Master's side had not seen Chu Luiyue before, but Chu Luiyue was very famous among the warriors. When she was competing with Chu Xianmin that day, the warriors were all present. However, Chu Luiyue turned a deaf ear to all these and walked straight to Jiuyou Tower. Wait. A provocative voice sounded, and Chu Luiyue looked up. The person blocking her path was none other than Lu Fian. What's the matter? Chu Luiyue asked lightly. Lu Fian's thin brows knitted together. Her already sharp voice became even more ear-piercing when she raised it. Of course there's something. Chu Luiyue, what are you doing here? Chu Luiyue said matter-of-factly, to cultivate, of course. This is the territory of martial artists. Who knows what intentions a Xian cultivator like you has by coming here? Lu Fian had been bullied by Chu Luiyue the day before and did not sleep well the entire night. No matter how she thought about it, she felt aggrieved. Just as she was thinking about how to deal with her, Chu Luiyue came knocking on her door. There were many warriors here, so she was not afraid of Chu Luiyue. Upon hearing this, Chu Luiyue's calm expression finally changed. She raised her brows slightly and asked, "The warrior's territory is the warrior's territory. This is a warrior's territory. Am I, the person who won first place in the warrior competition, not qualified to come here?" Lu Fian was stunned. She then remembered that although Chu Luiyue had gone to the Xian Master's side to cultivate, she had indeed won the warrior's first place during the midterm assessment. She was actually more qualified than anyone else to come here. Lu Fian's expression froze. My time is very precious. If you continue to obstruct me, I can't guarantee what I will do. Chu Luiyue's expression was calm, and her tone was indifferent, as though she was talking about something unimportant. But it was precisely this attitude that made Lu Fian feel an inexplicable fear. She almost subconsciously took a step back, but with so many people watching, she felt even more indignant. When Chu Luiyue walked past, she could not help but curse in a low voice. What's there to be proud of? You're just a stray dog. Without the support of an aristocratic family, what capabilities could Chu Luiyue have? Upon hearing this, Chu Luiyue did not stop and only laughed faintly. This was not the first time she had heard such words, but she did not care at all. In everyone's eyes, the Chu family was large and had a stable foundation. But to her and Chu Ning, it was nothing more than a dirty and smelly cage. The sooner she could leave, the sooner she would be happy. As for Lu Fian, who did not know how to speak, she could deal with her another day. Seeing that Chu Luiyue ignored her, Lu Fian thought that she was afraid. She could not help but feel more confident and said to the people behind her, "Did you see that? Chu Luiyue is just doing well on the surface. She has offended the Chu family and the crown prince. She will suffer in the future." When she said this, she did not get the agreement she expected. The few women looked at each other and hesitated for a long time before saying hesitantly, I heard that the Chu family situation is not very good now. They said that the crown prince is going to marry into the Chu family in 2 days, but Minmin seems to be just a concubine. In the past, everyone thought that Chu Xinmin's position as the crown princess was secure, and they thought highly of the Chu family. But it was different now. Chu Xianmin married into the crown prince's family with such a status. It was equivalent to giving the Chu family a slap. The Chu family was in a worse situation. On the other hand, Chu Luiyue's life after leaving the Chu family was smooth sailing. The expression in Lu Fian's eyes changed. She deliberately sighed and put on a sorrowful expression. Minmin has already been disfigured. The position of the crown princess naturally has to be given to someone else. When is the date? We have to go together and support her. There were not many opportunities to see the crown prince. She would not miss it. At this moment, Chu Luiyue had already reached Jiuyou Tower. An elder in a white robe was sitting in front of the door, pretending to be asleep. Before every student entered, they had to stop in front of the elder for a moment. Chu Luiyue saw that they all took off the nameplate on their left chest and placed it on a square black jade in front of the elder before picking it up. She walked closer and saw that a few lines of words would appear on the jade whenever the nameplate was placed on the jade. Soon it was her turn. She had just placed her nameplate on the jade when the elder suddenly opened his eyes. "Are you the girl who got first place in the midterm assessment, Chu Luiyue?" He pursed his lips. "Why didn't you register your Yuan Meridian level?" Digression. Mobile users who are working hard to save their manuscripts, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 110. Chu Luiyue paused. "I don't know about this." The elder chuckled and waved his hand. "It's normal that you didn't register. Every year, when new students enter the academy, they will be tested and registered together. But your situation is special, so it's normal that you don't have this. You can find some time to take the test later." Chu Luiyue then remembered that when the first few people placed their nameplates on the black jade stone, not only would their names be displayed, but it would also display their Yuan Meridian and cultivation level. But when she placed her nameplate on the stone, only her name was displayed. No, there was a number behind it. 19. Chu Luiyue looked at the number behind her name strangely. This is the time you have to cultivate in Jiuyou Tower. According to the results of the midterm assessment, every student will be allocated a different amount of time to cultivate. You came in second in the xianmaster assessment and first in the warrior assessment, so you have exactly 38 hours in total. The elder was very patient and explained it to Chu Luiyue. After he finished speaking, Chu Luiyue clearly felt that many people around her looked at her again. Unlike the curiosity and reverence from before, Chu Luiyue felt more envy this time. Envy? Could it be because of these 38 hours? Chu Luiyue knew that there were conditions for entering Jiuyou Tower to cultivate, but now it seemed that it was more difficult than she had imagined. She had obtained such results in only 38 hours. It was easy to imagine how much time others had. "Teacher, can I freely allocate these 38 hours? The elder smiled slyly. "Of course it's not that simple. Although you have a lot of time, there's a limit to the amount of time you can cultivate every day." Most Xian masters and celestial physicians didn't care about this aspect of cultivation, so they rarely came to Jiuyou Tower to absorb force. Most of them were martial artists. After all, the force density in Jiuyou Tower was much higher than outside. If one could cultivate inside, their speed would increase by a lot. To any martial artist, this was an enormous temptation. And this time is naturally divided according to the martial artist's level. Rank 1 warriors spend 2 hours a day, rank 2 warriors spend 4 hours, and so on and so forth. The old man's eyes sparkled with excitement and curiosity as he stared at Chu Luiyue. "I heard that you defeated Chu Xianmin previously. You should be a stage 3 warrior now, right?" When Chu Luiyue heard him mention the martial artist rank, he knew something was wrong. She was not weak, but who would have thought that she had just broken through to become a stage 1 warrior? No matter how hard she tried, the thing in her dantian refused to add another line. Chu Luiyue couldn't do anything about it. She had no choice but to bite the bullet and say, "Student, rank 1 warrior. The Chu clan." "First elder, do you mean that you don't intend to give Minmin a dowry?" Although Chu Yan and Lu Yao were unwilling to let their daughter marry into the crown prince's residence as a concubine, they had no other choice but to agree. 3 days was too rushed, so they could only prepare as much dowry as possible to make Chu Xinmin's life easier after she married into the crown prince's residence. However, they didn't expect to be stopped by the first elder. The first elder was expressionless. The crown prince's residence hasn't been earning much in recent years. Both of you know this best. Now that the date has been set in a hurry, there's no time to prepare so much dowry. Chu Yan suppressed his anger. Minmin is going to marry into the crown prince's residence. This represents the Chu family's face. If Minmin is looked down upon, it will embarrass the Chu family as well. It's not bad to marry into the crown prince's residence, but she's just a concubine. The first elder put down the teacup in his hand and looked at the two with a sullen face. If her dowry is too generous now, how will she live when the crown princess and secondary consort enter the residence? Instead of being in the limelight for a while, it's better to keep a low profile and avoid more trouble. These words made Chu Yan and Lu Yao speechless, but the anger in their hearts burned even brighter. Although the Chu family wasn't the same as before, it wasn't to the point where they couldn't even afford such a small amount of money. Moreover, Chu Xianmin was the Chu family's first daughter. Ever since she got close to the crown prince's residence had been secretly preparing the dowry. The first elder said there wasn't any because Chu Xianmin had lost her position as the crown princess, so he purposely treated her harshly and wanted to keep this sum of money. How could Chu Yan and Lu Yao agree? First elder, although Minmin can't marry into the crown prince's residence as the crown princess, it's hard to say what the future holds. If you insist on this, that's all in the future. Who can say for sure? Hearing this, the first elder interrupted him, but his heart was still shaken, so he said, "That's right. However, seeing that you only have one daughter, the crown prince's residence will give you 32 dowries." Lu Yao sneered in her heart. Are you trying to dismiss a beggar with this amount of money? The Chu family is so big, but giving out 32 dowries is embarrassing enough. The first elder seemed to have seen through her thoughts and added calmly, Lu Yao, you've been serving the crown princess for a long time. I'm sure you've already saved up some dowries for Minmin. The crown prince's residence giving you this is already very benevolent. Don't you think so? Lu Yao gritted her teeth. The first elder was threatening her with the matter of her pocketing the money. However, she didn't dare to make a big deal out of it. After all, her reputation would be ruined if word got out. However, she couldn't say anything about it. It was true that she took the money, but which of her daily necessities didn't cost money? Her family of 3 was used to luxury and liked to choose the best for everything. They didn't have much money left. Most importantly, Chu Xianmin spent hundreds of thousands of silver taels to buy things at Zhenbao Pavilion a month ago. She originally wanted to wait for Chu Xianmin to win first place in the academy and win the crown prince's favor before going to her parents' house to ask for the money. However, who knew that Chu Liwei would appear and mess up all her plans? The Lu family was now mocking and ridiculing them. Why would they give them a single set? Zhenbao Pavilion was pressing her, and she didn't dare to offend this family. She could only take the money from her own pocket. How would she have the money for Chu Xianmin's wedding? However, the first elder's behavior made it clear that he wouldn't change his mind. If she continued, she would only be humiliating herself. Lu Yao resisted the urge to stand up. She glanced at Chu Yan, who still wanted to say something, and the two of them left with grievances. Tianlu Academy, Jiuyou Tower. Chu Liwei ignored the various gazes around him and put the nameplate back on his left chest. He calmed himself down and looked forward. Jiuyou Tower had a total of 9 floors. It was made of black iron and was thick and majestic. Looking from the bottom, it looked like a sharp sword piercing through the clouds as if it could tear the sky apart at any time. Every floor had 8 corners that were raised up like eaves with bells hanging from them. When the wind blew, one could hear the crisp sound of the bells nearby. Chu Liwei had already walked in through the greenish-black bronze door. There was a strange carving above the door. It seemed to be an eagle. Its head was slightly lowered and its eyes were tightly shut. A pair of huge wings were folded in front of its body, and it looked extremely majestic. The remaining karmic fire seemed to be crazily spreading and burning it. For some reason, Chu Liwei felt an inexplicable murderous aura with just one look. She covered up this strange feeling and reached out her hand to push the door open. At this moment, the eagle's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. Scarlet, brutal, terrifying. The piercing murderous intent went straight for Chu Liwei. Digression. It will be published tomorrow and the editor will have to approve it. Hence, it will be published around noon. It will be more convenient for everyone to read it in the afternoon. Thank you for all your support. I will work hard in writing in February. What? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 111. The next moment, a flame seemed to gather under the palm she placed on the door, burning wildly. In an instant, the flame seemed to have spread from her palm to her entire body. The scorching heat surrounded her in an instant. Every inch of her body felt as if it had been burned by a raging fire. Her internal organs felt as if they were being gripped tightly by something, and the pain pierced her heart. Chu Liwei was shocked and furious. This flame was actually trying to kill her. She wanted to retreat, but she realized that she couldn't move at all. It was as if her entire body was being controlled. The flame had already rapidly burned through her limbs and bones, heading for her dantian. That biting cold and terrifying murderous intent made Chu Liwei's hair stand on end. The dantian was the most important part of a cultivator. Once it was damaged, one would never be able to cultivate for the rest of their lives. This thing was actually here for this. However, just as the powerful force was about to enter her dantian, the water droplet that had been quietly floating in Chu Liyue's dantian suddenly started spinning rapidly. Boom. An invisible suppressive force shot out from Chu Liyue's body and went straight for him. Chu Liyue could even clearly feel the two forces colliding fiercely, and the terrifying force spread throughout her body. At this moment, Chu Liyue felt as if there was lava bursting in her body, and there wasn't a single part of her body that wasn't painful. Fortunately, the force that burst forth from the water droplet was extremely strong, and it almost destroyed the force that wanted to kill Chu Liyue. Only then did the terrifying pain gradually dissipate. However, Chu Liyue didn't dare to relax. Her eyes were fixed on the picture on the door. When she looked, she realized that the eagle's eyes were already closed. It was as if everything that had just happened had never happened. Chu Liyue gradually clenched her fists tightly. No, that definitely wasn't an illusion. If not for the power of the water droplet, she would probably have been a dead person by now. She never would have thought that she would be on the brink of death before even entering Jianghu Tower. What's wrong? Is there a problem? Seeing Chu Liyue standing in front of the door without moving, the old man asked doubtfully. Chu Liyue turned around to take a look. The old man and the people around him didn't seem to have noticed what had happened in that instant. Her mind raced as she shook her head. Nothing. After saying that, she didn't stay any longer and walked in. Jianghu Tower had a total of 9 floors. The space inside was very spacious and there were many partitioned rooms. The people who had come in earlier had already familiarized themselves with the place and were heading towards the rooms that they liked to cultivate in. Right in the middle was a spiral staircase, obviously leading to the top. Some people didn't stop at the first floor but instead went straight up. In Jianghu Tower, the higher the floor, the denser the force. However, each layer was separated by a barrier. Anyone who wanted to enter the higher floors to cultivate would have to pass through the barrier. And this depended on one's own ability. Generally, low-level students could only cultivate on the first floor. Chu Liyue wasn't in a hurry to choose a room to cultivate in. Instead, she stood still and lowered her head to look at her palm. A charred mark could be clearly seen. She had placed her hand on the door just now. That terrifying flame had also entered her body through her palm. This burn mark was the best proof of what had just happened. But, why did this happen? There was clearly no problem for other students to enter Jianghu Tower. Why did this happen to her alone? Why did that eagle suddenly open its eyes and have such a strong murderous intent towards her? Perhaps, that murderous intent wasn't directed at her, but at the water droplet in her dantian. Chu Liyue furrowed her brows but she didn't have an answer. Chu Liyue, haven't you chosen a room yet? A voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Chu Liyue turned around and saw an unfamiliar girl's face. That girl was pretty and her almond-shaped eyes were extremely cute. She raised her hand and pointed to the side. Actually, there isn't much difference between the rooms on the first floor. You can just choose one to cultivate in. However, the names that appear on the door are signs that someone has already entered. You can just choose those that are empty. Chu Liyue nodded. Thank you. That girl grinned. What's there to thank me for? My name is Mu Hongyu. You can just call me Hongyu. Chu Liyue couldn't help but laugh. So this girl was a sociable person. She quite liked her character. However, she didn't know her, so why did she seem so friendly? Okay, you can call me Luyu then. Mu Hongyu sized up Chu Liyue curiously. You're really different from the rumors. Chu Liyue didn't need to ask to guess what those so-called rumors said about her, but she wasn't interested in asking. Others can't wait to avoid me. Why are you taking the initiative to help me? Mu Hongyu snorted. You taught Chu Xianmin a lesson, so I'm naturally on your side. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Chu Liyue was amused. She felt that this girl was purposely helping her because she had a grudge against Chu Xianmin. However, she also agreed with what she said. I'm not talking to you anymore. I still have to go up and cultivate. After Mu Hongyu finished speaking, she simply turned around and walked upstairs. Chu Liyue originally wanted to go up, but she hesitated when she thought of what had just happened. She still chose to stay on the first floor. Chu Liyue roughly looked around and realized that the layout of every room was almost the same. In the end, she chose a very secluded spot and went in. After closing the door and isolating herself from all kinds of gazes, Chu Liyue sat cross-legged on the stone platform in the room. She wasn't in a hurry to cultivate. Instead, she looked at the burn mark on her palm again. However, it still seemed to hurt slightly. Chu Liyue fell into deep thought. Jiuyo Tower was the most important place in Tianlu Academy. It was also the foundation of the academy. If anything happened, the teachers in the academy would definitely not sit back and do nothing. However, that elder was so close to her just now, but he didn't seem to have noticed anything. Chu Liyue couldn't guarantee that no one else knew about this, but the most important thing now was to figure out why Jiuyo Tower was targeting her. Or rather, it was targeting the water droplet in her body. Where exactly did you come from? How did you get into so much trouble? Chu Liyue asked in her heart. However, the water droplet didn't move. It's my first time here, so it's scary but not dangerous. However, this won't happen again in the future, right? Chu Liyue's eyelids twitched. If this happens every day, I don't need to come to Jiuyo Tower anymore. Isn't it troublesome enough? This time, the water droplet trembled slightly, and a line of words finally appeared. What's there to fear from a mere evil creature? Evil creature? Chu Liyue was stunned for a while, and a chill rose from the bottom of her feet. You mean that there's a fiend in Jiuyo Tower? How is this possible? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 112. Below Jiuyo Tower was a pit of heavenly origins. It was because of this that the heaven and earth force in the tower was so abundant. To cultivators, this was a good place to quickly improve their cultivation. But to fiends, it was the opposite. The pit of heavenly origins was a natural force treasure trove. It contained rich heaven and earth force, but it was also mixed with many impurities. If one absorbed too much, it would cause harm to the cultivator's body. If it was light, it would damage one's yuan meridian, and if it was heavy, it would cause death. Cultivators could use all kinds of methods to expel these impurities, but fiends could not. Moreover, fiends were mostly cruel and vicious, so the pit of heavenly origins had a greater impact on them. If they stayed for too long, they would easily lose their minds and eventually go berserk. They might even explode and die. Jiuyo Tower was built above the pit of heavenly origins. How could there be fiends here? The words on the water droplet dissipated quickly. It had no intention of explaining. Chu Liyue frowned. Although this statement was absurd, she inexplicably believed it in her heart. When the eagle opened its eyes, she was very sure that it was the aura of a fiend. But why did the academy do this? Whether it was to the fiends or the students cultivating in the tower, this was a great hidden danger. And as the dean, did Master know about this? Prince Li's mansion. Seeing that his master had finally returned, Umo hurriedly went to welcome him. Master, you're back. Rong Xiao nodded, looking relaxed. Umo saw the faint smile at the corner of his mouth and was surprised. As long as he stayed with that person for a period of time, his master's mood would always improve. He really had to give it to him. Looks like Master had a good night's rest. Rong Xiao raised his eyebrows. Was the mansion still lively yesterday? Umo bowed. Yes, the other party sent another group of people. They wanted to break into your bedroom to find out what was going on, but we took them down. Still suicide soldiers? Yes, they were the same as the people who came 2 days ago. They didn't care about their lives. Seeing that they couldn't break in, they wanted to commit suicide by taking poison. However, one of them didn't die and is now locked up. Yan Qing interrogated him all night and used a lot of tricks. Finally, that person spat out something. Rong Xiao stopped in his tracks. Umo lowered his voice. It's the Crown Prince's men. Rong Xiao smiled. After so many years, it's still the same trick. He's not tired, but I'm tired. Umo asked hesitantly. Master, what do you think of this person? Is Third Imperial Brother still in the Imperial capital? Rong Xiao suddenly asked. Yes. His Majesty said that His Highness, the Third Prince, had been fighting at the border for many years and had suffered a lot. Now that there is no war and the Third Prince has reached the age to marry and have children, His Majesty's intention is to let the Third Prince stay in the Imperial capital. Rong Xiao chuckled. Rong Jiao had made great contributions in the Northwest Army, and his reputation was at its peak. How could father be at ease and let him go back? Staying in the Imperial capital was the safest option. I've been back for a long time, but I haven't visited Third Imperial Brother. Tell Yan Qing to bring him along. I'll give Third Imperial Brother a big gift. Yes. Rong Jiao joined the army at a young age and was always outside. In the past, he would only stay in the palace for a few days before leaving. However, when he came back this time, Emperor Jiawen said that he was old enough to stay in the palace. Hence, he specially prepared a mansion for him outside the palace. The size of this mansion was actually similar to Rong Xiao's princely mansion. However, the decree to confer him a prince had not been passed down. Rongjio originally had some hope, but after waiting day after day, Emperor Jiawen repeatedly refused to let him go back. Hence he understood what was going on. Conferring him a prince was a small matter. Trapping him in the imperial capital was a big matter. The Northwest Army kept inviting him back, but Rongjio knew that it would be difficult this time. After thinking this through, he calmed down and continued to stay in the imperial capital as if he didn't notice the emperor's fear at all. In the backyard, Rongjio and Rongfeng were sparring. The two of them exchanged blows with each other. Rongfeng was quite talented, and he had been diligently cultivating with the teachers in the palace. He was only 15 years old, but he was already a stage 3 warrior. However, compared to Rongjio, who had been on the battlefield for a long time, he was still inexperienced. After 10 rounds, Rongjio found an opportunity to stab Rongfeng with his spear and easily sent Rongfeng's sword flying. Rongfeng looked at the sword that fell to the ground and smiled bitterly. "Third brother, can't you go easy on me? It's so boring every time." Rongjio twirled his spear. "Who would go easy on you on the battlefield?" Rongfeng was speechless, but he immediately shrugged and smiled proudly. "I know you're doing this for my own good, third brother. Those people in the palace tiptoe around me every time I fight. It's so annoying." Rongjio's lips twitched. "Then why don't you go to Tianlu Academy? The teachers there won't be like this. The crown prince is there." "I don't want to go." Rongfeng rolled his eyes. "I've been compared to him since I was young. Isn't it annoying?" Upon hearing this, Rongjio looked at him fixedly. "So, you've been hiding your abilities and pretending that you're not as good as him? Who dares to be more outstanding than the crown prince? Isn't that finding trouble for myself? I'm not that bored." Rongfeng threw himself onto the rattan chair at the side. "Didn't you see that seventh brother hasn't returned to the imperial city for 10 years? Just because he was conferred the title of prince, he got himself into so much trouble? Third brother, I think you're a thorn in his side even in the imperial city." Rongjio was about to speak when he suddenly saw his trusted aide walking over quickly. "Third prince, someone from Princely Mansion said that Princely has a gift for you. It's already outside the door." "Gift? Bring it in." Rongfeng followed closely behind, looking curious. "Third brother, what gift did seventh brother give you? Isn't your birthday still early?" Rongjio didn't say anything, but he was thinking in his heart. Very quickly, a wooden box was carried in. Rongjio narrowed his eyes, turned his wrist and stabbed his spear out. The wooden box opened. A thick smell of blood assaulted his nostrils. Inside the wooden box was a person covered in wounds and blood. His entire body was twisted into a strange position and stuffed into the wooden box. Just one look was enough to make one shiver. Rongfeng gasped. He had never seen such a scene before. His expression changed drastically and he started retching. Rongjio looked at him and frowned. "Third brother. This is a dead person?" Rongfeng said with difficulty. "Why did seventh brother give you this?" The person beside him reminded him, "His Highness isn't dead yet." "Your Highness, this person is not dead yet. He just fainted from excessive blood loss." Rongjio stepped forward. "Third brother, don't go over." Rongjio flicked his spear and something flew out. It was a small seal. Rongjio picked up the seal and looked at it carefully. His expression changed slightly. He thought for a moment. "Lock this person up and keep him alive. We can't let him die." Then he turned around and left. Upon seeing this, Rongfeng hurriedly followed. "Third brother, where are you going?" Rongjio didn't look back. Since Rongjio had given him such a big gift, he naturally had to accept it. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 113. 3 days passed quickly, and it was Chu Liuyue's wedding day in the blink of an eye. However, other than her own residence that was slightly decorated, the rest of the Chu family did not have the slightest bit of festive spirit. In the past, when the residents held a wedding, the servants would fight to be the first to do the work. On one hand, they wanted to leave a good impression in front of their masters, and on the other hand they wanted to get more money. However, Chu Xinmin's courtyard was cold and cheerless. Only a few servants who usually served her here were busy with work. If not for the fact that they could not avoid it, they would not have come. The entire residence knew that although Chu Xianmin was marrying into the Crown Prince Mansion, she was only marrying into the Crown Prince Mansion as a concubine. It was not presentable. Because of this, the first elder did not even prepare any dowry for her. It was obvious that this wedding was not a joyous occasion. A few servants discussed softly as they packed up. With third Missy's status, I thought she would marry into the crown prince consort. I didn't expect her to be a concubine. Where is our Chu family's face? That's right. The Chu family's life has not been good these few years. Now that the first Missy is marrying into the crown prince consort's life, we are a joke for no reason. Third Missy used to be so glamorous, but many people are laughing at her now. Who can be blamed for that? Third Missy's face is disfigured, and she has to wear a veil wherever she goes. Besides, her reputation is long gone. Even if she is willing to marry, no one will want her. Where can she go other than the crown prince mansion? She's coming out. The door was pushed open and Chu Xianmin walked out with the help of someone. The servants in the courtyard immediately stopped talking, but their eyes kept sizing her up. She was wearing a red wedding dress and a veil, but she did not wear a phoenix coronet. She only wore a golden jade hairpin from the crown prince mansion. It was not that she did not want to dress up, but the rules were as such. Only the first wife had the right to wear a phoenix coronet. For someone like her who entered the crown prince mansion as a concubine, she had to dress simply. Chu Xianmin walked out of the room and the courtyard was cold and empty. Other than her original servants, there was no one else who came to celebrate. It's good that they didn't come. Wasn't he just making fun of her by coming at this time? Chu Xianmin clenched her teeth and dug her nails deep into her palms to suppress the anger and indignation in her heart. It's so quiet. Is the crown prince not here yet? Why didn't I hear any gongs or drums? Asked Chu Xianmin as she suppressed her anger. Those people in the crown prince's residence were really something. In the past they used to curry favor with her. Now that she was in dire straits, they even dared to neglect her wedding. Everyone looked at each other. Lu Yao stood at the side with a stiff expression on her face. She had actually forgotten to tell Min Min that the crown prince did not need to personally come over to welcome this marriage. At this moment someone walked over quickly. Isn't it already packed? Why aren't you leaving yet? The sedan chair is already waiting outside. Third Miss Chu, please come in. This man looked familiar to Chu Xianmin. He was just a normal guard in the crown prince mansion. He used to bow and scrape when he saw her, but he dared to speak with a straight back in front of her now. But that wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was, you, what do you mean? The crown prince is not coming? Chu Xianmin widened her eyes. Lu Yao pulled her and whispered, Min Min, don't worry. According to the rules, there's nothing wrong with this. Chu Xianmin finally recovered her senses. The crown prince would not even come to her so-called wedding. He would just send someone over casually. That guard smiled with a hint of mockery on his face. Third Miss Chu, His Highness is busy with work. How can he have the time for such a small matter? Small matter. He actually said that the most important thing in a woman's life was a small matter. Chu Xianmin had fantasized about marrying into the crown prince mansion countless times. It should be colorful and grand. It should not be as simple and disgusting as it was now. It was only at this moment that she realized that she was a concubine. Chu Xianmin did not know how she suppressed the surging emotions in her heart. She also did not know how she walked to the sedan chair outside the door. Only when she reached the crown prince mansion's door did she finally recover her senses. She lifted the curtain at the side and looked outside. The crown prince mansion's door was tightly shut. It did not look like a wedding was going to be held. Yes, she could only enter through the small door. A strong sense of humiliation welled up in her heart. Chu Xianmin was born to be favored by the heavens. She had been the object of envy for so many years. When had she ever been so lowly? Her hatred for Chu Luiyue increased by another level. The servant brought her to a yard in the backyard of the crown prince mansion. Tingfeng Garden will be your residence in the future. The crown prince has something important to do today, so he won't be able to come. You can wait here for now. After saying this, the person who brought her here turned around and left. Chu Xianmin took a look and saw a few servants and page boys standing outside. They must have been sent to serve her. She was extremely aggrieved at this point, so she could not care about them. There was only one way left for her now. No matter what, she had to win the crown prince's favor. Chu Xianmin waited for an entire day. It wasn't until night fell that the courtyard suddenly became lively. Greetings, Your Highness. Hearing this voice, Chu Xianmin hurriedly stood up to welcome him. Rong Jin had already pushed the door open and entered. Your Highness, you're finally here. After the previous incident, Rong Jin disliked Chu Xianmin. Now that he was forced to marry her under his father's pressure, he did not even want to see her face. Hence he was busy the entire day and only came at night. As soon as he entered, he saw a familiar figure. Chu Xianmin was wearing a red wedding dress and stood there prettily. The warm and dim candlelight in the room enveloped her in a layer of hazy light, which added a rare charm to her. Even though she was not dressed to the nines today, the cut of the wedding dress was appropriate, outlining her exquisite and slender figure. Her slender waist could be held with one arm. Rong Jin looked at her and squinted his eyes. Chu Xianmin was indeed beautiful without mentioning anything else. The red veil covered her face, revealing only a pair of timid and sparkling eyes. They were especially seductive. Rong Jin walked toward her and his voice became much gentler. There were too many things today and I couldn't get away. That's why I'm late. Minmin, you won't blame me, right? Why would I? Your Highness's matters are the most important. I'm already very happy that you still care about me, said Chu Xianmin with a smile, but her eyes were filled with tears, making her look pitiful. This time Rong Jin's heart ached even more. He gently touched her shoulder with one hand and was a little tempted. As he spoke, he wanted to pull her veil. Min. Chu Xianmin did not expect him to be so direct. She immediately wanted to stop him, but it was too late. Rong Jin had already seen the scarlet and scary scar on her face. Your face. As if he had seen something terrifying, he quickly retreated, and the ambiguity just now disappeared in an instant. Chu Xianmin seemed to have been slapped harshly. When she hurriedly put on the veil and wanted to explain herself, Song Yuan's anxious voice suddenly came from outside. Your Highness, Her Majesty urgently summons you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 114. Upon hearing this, Rong Jin heaved a sigh of relief. Why, you should rest today. I'll come and see you another day. Then, without waiting for Chu Xianmin's reply, he turned around and left quickly. Your Highness. Chu Xianmin was flustered and instinctively wanted to follow him to explain. However, Rong Jin suddenly turned around and frowned. Alright, don't go out and show your face if you have nothing to do. You can still go to the academy, but your face. You should wear your veil. Then, he hurriedly left as if there was a ferocious beast chasing after him. Once he thought of that frightening face, he felt his stomach churn. To think that I actually thought she was beautiful just now. How disgusting. Rong Jin's figure quickly disappeared, and only Chu Xianmin was left in the room. She stood there in a daze and laughed softly after a long time. However, there was only coldness and hatred left in her laughter. It's already so late. Why did father suddenly summon me? What happened? Rong Jin asked Song Yuan as he walked out of Ting Feng Garden quickly. Your Highness, I don't know either. Eunuch Min came personally. It seems like it's urgent. As he spoke, Rong Jin looked up and indeed saw Eunuch Min's figure. He was even more confused. What exactly happened that made Eunuch Min come so late? Eunuch Min anxiously paced back and forth. When he saw Rong Jin from afar, he immediately went forward. Oh, Your Highness, you're finally out. His Majesty is waiting for you. Let's go quickly. Rong Jin knitted his brows. Why the rush? Eunuch Min, what exactly happened? Your Highness, I don't know about this either. It's just that the third prince went to the palace in the afternoon and talked to His Majesty in the imperial study for a long time. After the third prince left, His Majesty ordered you to quickly enter the palace. Eunuch Min hesitated and touched the horsetail whisk in his arms. Your Highness, there's something I need to tell you. His Majesty is in a fit of anger right now. When you arrive, you must be careful. Angry? Rong Jin knitted his brows even tighter. Is it related to Rongjio? However, I didn't have much contact with Rongjio during this period. Why is it related to him? Thank you, Eunuch Min. Rong Jin did not ask further and entered the palace with Eunuch Min. The midsummer night was especially hot. Rong Jin was drenched in sweat when he rushed to the imperial study. However, when he entered and saw his father's cold expression, his heart instantly turned cold. Imperial Father. Emperor Jiawen suddenly raised his hand and threw the inkstone on the table at Rong Jin. Rong Jin didn't dare to dodge and took it head-on. A wound immediately appeared on his forehead and blood gushed out. He knew something was wrong and immediately knelt down. Imperial Father, if you want to teach this son a lesson, this son will accept it. But can you tell me why exactly? Don't you know what you've done? Emperor Jiawen rudely interrupted him and his face turned green. This was Rong Jin's first time seeing him like this, and his heart kept sinking. What was going on? Rong Jin, you're already the crown prince. Why are you still doing this to your brothers? Are you really that intolerant of others? Emperor Jiawen hollered. Rong Jin suddenly recovered his senses and was shocked. Could it be that Imperial Father knows that I sent someone to investigate Rong Xiu? I know that Rong Jiu has many military achievements and can go against you. You don't like him. But he's your brother after all, and you're already the crown prince. How can you still be so narrow-minded? Rong Jin was dazed. Rong Jiu? That's not right. The people I sent were clearly, Imperial Father, I didn't. You still dare to deny it. Your men have already been detained by Rong Jiu. Rong Jin's remaining words were stuck in his throat, and he couldn't say them. If it weren't for the fact that he's been in the military for many years and is alert enough, I don't even know if he's dead or alive. Emperor Jiawen sighed heavily. You disappoint me too much. Rong Jin felt as if he was struck by lightning, and his heart was in turmoil. That's not right. My men went for Rong Xiu and didn't do anything to Rong Jiu. There must be a problem here. He was indeed afraid of Rong Jiu, but he didn't even want to do anything. This was because he clearly knew that Rong Jiu's military achievements overshadowed the emperor's, and his father had long had this thought. His father made him stay in the imperial city for so long because he wanted to weaken Rong Jiu's control over the Northwest Army. I can just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Why would I find trouble for no reason? Could it be that Rong Xiu and Rong Jiu teamed up? Thinking of this, Rong Jin's face was especially ugly. In Emperor Jiawen's eyes, this change in expression naturally meant that Rong Jin admitted to it. Brothers killing each other? You've really grown up. Rong Jin couldn't refute or say a single word. Since Rong Jiu dared to come here to complain, he must have solid evidence. If he denied it and continued investigating, it would only bring him trouble. Besides, he couldn't say that he originally went for Rong Xiu. The consequences would be even worse. After much thought, Rong Jin could only clench his teeth and admit it. I know my mistake. I just wanted to test Rong Jiu's abilities, and I didn't have any murderous intentions. Father, please understand. However, I was rash and made a big mistake. Father, please punish me. Emperor Jiawen stared at him solemnly. Cultivation time always passed very quickly. In the blink of an eye, Chu Luiyue had already stayed in the academy for 5 days. In these few days, she gradually understood the various classes in the academy and started to get used to life in the academy. Chapter 115. Fiend title? Chu Luiyue was confused. You don't know about this? Every year at the end of August, there will be a fiend title in Wanling Mountain. Countless fiends will fight to go there, and many of them are mid-stage fiends. If you're lucky, there will be high-level fiends. This is a great opportunity to hunt fiends, so the elders from the academy will lead the team there every year. The students are free to form teams. After entering Wanling Mountain, everyone will move in groups. The level of fiends you can hunt will depend on your own abilities. Mu Hongyu explained. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. The original owner seemed to have a vague impression of this because the crown prince, Rong Jin, personally hunted a 4th-grade fiend, a red-eyed fire leopard, during the fiend title a year ago. When this matter spread, Rong Jin was in the limelight for a while. Everyone knew that the crown prince was very powerful and could even hunt such a ferocious beast personally. One had to know that 1st-grade to 3rd-grade fiends were considered low-level fiends. 4th-grade to 6th-grade fiends were intermediate-level fiends. As for the legendary 9th-grade fiends, they were considered high-level fiends that only existed in rumors. Even though a 4th-grade fiend was only 1 grade higher than a 3rd-grade fiend, the difference was like night and day. However, Chu Luiyue had been busy cultivating these few days, so she did not pay much attention to this matter. Mu Hongyu told her this. You want to team up with me? Asked Chu Luiyue. Yes. Mu Hongyu didn't hide anything and nodded graciously. You're the top warrior and a Shen master. You're considered one of the most capable students in our batch. Who else can I look for but you? But don't worry, I won't drag you down. I should be able to break through and become a stage 4 warrior in half a month. Chu Luiyue was not worried about this. During the previous midterm assessment, Mu Hongyu lost to Gu Mingfeng and came in 3rd place. With this kind of ability, she was definitely considered an expert. Sure, let's move together then. Mu Hongyu invited him so warmly that he had no reason to refuse. The fact that Chu Luiyue agreed so readily surprised Mu Hongyu. You really agreed? That's right. What's wrong with that? That's not it. It's just that those Shen masters have always looked down on us martial artists. We also don't like them, so we rarely team up with them. You're considered a member of the Shen cultivator team now. Won't they criticize you if you team up with me like this? Mu Hongyu asked hesitantly. Chu Luiyue could not help but laugh. This kind of struggle was really childish. In a world where strength reigns supreme, why would they care about such things? It's fine. Mu Hongyu smiled when she saw how confident she was. Her almond-shaped eyes were bright and dazzling. Good. It's settled then. Hey, if you have other people who want to team up with you, you can also pull them over. 5 people in a group, we still need 3 more people. Chu Liyue thought for a moment. It's up to you. She was not very familiar with these people, so she might as well leave it to Mu Hongyu. When Mu Hongyu heard this, she immediately felt that Chu Liyue trusted her a lot and had a better impression of her. Okay. There was a meditation class in the afternoon. When Chu Liyue went over, she saw Gu Mingzhu standing outside the door. Seeing her walk over, Gu Mingzhu's expression instantly darkened. Chu Liyue walked over unhurriedly. Second Miss Gu, did you bring those 2 Xian formation diagrams today? Gu Mingzhu's expression turned even uglier. She took out 2 Xian formation diagrams from her sleeves and threw them at Chu Liyue. Isn't it just Xian formation diagrams? What's there to rush? I'll give them to you. Chu Liyue caught the items lightly and opened them to take a look. After confirming that they were level 5 Xian formation diagrams, she curled her lips and said with a smile. Second Miss Gu also said that now that I've left the Chu family, my status is indeed not that high. 2 level 5 Xian formation diagrams are very precious, so I naturally value them. Unlike Second Miss Gu, who can easily take out this thing as a wager. Gu Mingzhu was so angry that her face turned pale. She did not dare to tell the patriarch about this. Even if she was very favored in the Gu family, the patriarch would definitely not forgive her if he knew. However, Chu Liyue urged her every day when she saw her and even said that if she did not give them to her, she would personally go to the Gu family to ask for them. How could Gu Mingzhu allow her to torment her like this? She could only privately beg her mother to give them to her. Because of this, she was even severely reprimanded. Now that she saw Chu Liyue smiling so happily, she felt so sullen in her heart that she wanted to die. Chu Liyue, I'll remember you this time. You better pray that you don't fall into my hands in the future. Otherwise you'll suffer. Chu Liyue waved the Xian formation diagrams in her hand. Thank you for your concern, Second Miss Gu. If you have any more good gifts, Liu will be very grateful. Gu Mingzhu was so angry that she almost died. Due to the fact that class was about to start and there were more and more people coming, she could only temporarily suppress her anger. She glared fiercely at Chu Liyue and turned to enter the room. Chu Liyue did not care and followed her in. Everyone in the room was in groups of 3 to 5 and seemed to be discussing something. Chu Liyue had just sat down in her seat when she saw Xiang waving at her. Hey Death Change, Chu Liyue, why don't you team up with us for the Devil Beast Tide? So everyone was talking about this. Chu Liyue shook her head. I've already agreed to team up with someone else. Thank you for your kindness. What? Someone already made a move first? Who is it? Xiang was unhappy when he heard this. Mu Hongyu. Xiang was stunned for a moment and bitterly lamented. Mu Hongyu? That Xiao Tianjiao? Are you kidding me? You, me, and my brother will be the top 3 Shen masters. We'll definitely be invincible. Why are you with her? Also, she's a warrior. I'm a warrior too. Chu Liyue glanced at him. Is there a rule that says warriors and Shen masters can't team up together? Xiang was speechless. No, but everything was planned well, but why was Mu Hongyu so fast? We've already gathered 4 people and you're the only one left. If you don't come, what are we going to do? Chu Liyue shook her head inwardly when she heard this. If it was just Xiang and Xiting, she could discuss it with Mu Hongyu. But it would be troublesome if there were 4 people. Also, she did not want to have too much contact with Xiting, so this was good. I promised Mu Hongyu that I can't go back on my word. Sorry. Chu Liyue took out the chessboard after she finished speaking. It was obvious that she had no intention of continuing the conversation. Xiang glanced at Xiting dejectedly. Xiting's expression did not change. If that's the case, let's find someone else. Xiang sighed inwardly. He could tell that his brother was interested in Chu Liyue. He wanted to use the magical beast tide to give his brother a chance. Unfortunately, Xiting, can I join you guys? I haven't teamed up with anyone yet. Gu Mingzhu had been listening to their conversation. Seeing this opportunity, she immediately spoke up and looked at Xiting hopefully. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 116. Xiang glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. No. With Gu Mingzhu's temper, it would be very troublesome to team up with her. Moreover, couldn't she tell that Big Brother was not interested in her at all? Gu Mingzhu felt her face burning after being rejected so directly in front of everyone. She looked at Si Ting pitifully, but Si Ting did not even look at her. His expression was indifferent, as if he did not care at all. Gu Mingzhu felt even more upset. She felt a fire surging in her chest, burning her whole body. She bit her lower lip and suppressed her urge to fly into a rage. However, his jealousy and hatred toward Chu Luiyue increased by another level. Why did they take the initiative to invite Chu Luiyue? But she was rejected when she took the initiative to invite him. Chu Luiyue threw away the things that he wished for like a pair of worn-out shoes. She did not believe that Chu Luiyue could continue to be so smug. Dong Fangqing quickly walked in. The discussions in the room immediately became much quieter. Dong Fangqing chuckled as he looked at everyone. It seems like all of you are looking forward to the Fiend Tide. There is still half a month to go, and you are already itching to take action? Teacher Dongfang, it is rumored that high-level fiends will appear during the Fiend Tide. Is that true? A student asked curiously. Dongfang Qing stroked his beard. During the Fiend Tide, hundreds and thousands of fiends will gather at Wanling Mountain. If you are lucky, you can indeed see a high-level fiend. The moment he said that, many students' eyes lit up. They could not hide the excitement in their eyes. If cultivators can successfully hunt fiends, it will undoubtedly increase their combat power greatly. The higher the level of the fiend, the greater the help. Especially for Xian masters like us, whose physical strength is slightly weaker, if we have a fiend we will not have to worry. Xian masters had a higher status than warriors, but they also had a weakness. They were not good at close combat. Especially when setting up Xian formations, they needed time and energy. At this time, if they had a fiend's help, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Therefore, compared to martial artists, mystic cultivators were more interested in fiend beasts. Some of you already have your own fiends, but most of you do not. You can take this opportunity to find a suitable one. If you have magical beasts, you can also give it a try. Teacher Dongfang, can't a cultivator only have one magical beast? Not bad. Magic beasts were ruthless, but they were also proud. They would never serve the same master. If you want to hunt new magical beasts, you have to release or kill the previous magical beasts. However, once a magical beast recognized a human as its master, its body would be tainted with the scent of the human. Even if it returned, it would be rejected by its own kind. Therefore, in most cases, once a magical beast is abandoned by its master, only death awaits it. Everyone nodded in understanding. Even though this magical beast is ferocious, it seems to have some pride, Dongfang Qing sighed. Yes. Once a magical beast recognized a master, it would be forever loyal, living and dying with its master. Therefore, when the time comes for you to hunt magical beasts, you must be extremely cautious and choose carefully. The students were all very excited. Yes. Chu Luiyue looked at the chessboard in front of him and suddenly stopped. Live and die together with master. So after she died, alright, take advantage of these 10 days to cultivate diligently. You will only be able to hunt higher level magical beasts when your strength increases. Today's test is on the water formation. Dongfang Qing waved his hand and the chess pieces flew out, forming a new pattern on the chessboard. Chu Luiyue lowered his eyes and collected his thoughts. During this lesson, Chu Luiyue was a little absent-minded. Even though his eyes were fixed on the chessboard, many scenes kept appearing in his mind. In her previous life as the Heavenly Princess, she naturally had her own magical beast. However, when she died, it happened to be on the verge of a breakthrough and fell into a deep slumber. At that time, she was betrayed and was in a desperate situation, so she could only choose to leave. However, before she took action, she had already placed it in place. She didn't know what the situation was like after that. Country Yaoqian was extremely far away from the Tianling dynasty. Given her current status and strength, it was as difficult as ascending to the heavens for her to obtain any information, let alone return. She was afraid that she could only wait for the so-called envoy to come and find out the truth. Chu Luiyue, haven't you solved it yet? More than 2 hours later, Xiyang solved the Xian formation. When he turned around, he realized that Chu Luiyue was still staring at the chessboard in front of him motionlessly. The previous few times she solved the Xian formation after Si Ting passed. Everyone was shocked and doubtful at the beginning, but now they were used to it. They didn't expect him to be second this time. He was ranked in front of Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue snapped out of his daze. At this moment, Gu Mingzhu also solved the Xian formation, and the chess pieces fell into the chess jar. She glanced at Chu Luiyue and sneered. "TSK. The long road reveals the horse's strength. Whether you are really capable or not, you will know in time." Chu Luiyue couldn't be bothered with her sarcastic attitude. He lowered his head and finally started to place his chess pieces. Her movements were very fast and smooth, as if she didn't need to think at all. After a few steps, the Xian formation was solved. Then, without looking at the surprised looks of the people around her, she stood up. "Miss Dongfang, can I leave after class?" "Yes, of course. Tomorrow is a holiday, so you can go home earlier today." Dongfang Qing could also tell that something was wrong with Chu Luiyue, so he quickly agreed. Chu Luiyue thanked him and left. Gu Mingzhu said coldly, "What is there to be proud of?" Si Ting raised his eyes to take a look, but all he saw was the corner of her clothes fluttering away. What is wrong with her? In his impression, Chu Luiyue was always calm and composed, as if nothing could shake her. To be able to cut ties with the Chu family so easily and establish her own family, Chu Luiyue was definitely more powerful than she looked. This was the first time he saw her lose her composure. Si Ting turned around and looked at the chessboard that was already set up. He frowned slightly. If he remembered correctly, Chu Luiyue seemed to have only taken one look and placed a chess piece. Tianlu Academy had a holiday once every 5 days. Chu Luiyue packed up and went home. Chu Ning was not back yet, so Chu Luiyue had dinner by herself and rested in her room. Just as she lay down on the wooden chair, a strange sound came from outside the window. Chu Luiyue looked over and saw a huge white head pushing open the window and peeking in. A pair of icy blue eyes stared straight at her. Wuxialover. Chu Luiyue laughed as she looked at it. The window was not big and its head took up almost half of it. "Xuexue, why are you here?" With that, Chu Luiyue walked over. Xuexue put its paws on her hand and looked at her pitifully. God knows how busy it had been outside these few days. She missed it so much. "Come in quickly." Chu Luiyue patted its head and took a step back. Xuexue was so excited that it wanted to rush in. Suddenly, the sound of a wooden board breaking was heard. It immediately paused and its expression was a little stiff. Chu Luiyue looked around and saw that the edge of the window had cracked. Her eyes twitched. Stuck? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 117. Xuexue looked at Chu Luiyue blankly. It didn't know what to do. Its huge head was stuck in the window. Looked very funny. "It's already broken anyway. Just come in." Chu Luiyue held her forehead. She waved at it, annoyed and amused at the same time. With Xuexue's size, it was already difficult for it to come in through the window. In addition, its physical strength was extremely strong. It only needed to move a little to destroy the wooden board. Seeing that Chu Luiyue wasn't angry, Xuexue was relieved. It jumped into Chu Luiyue's arms. Chu Luiyue caught it and steadied herself with great difficulty. The soft and fluffy body in her arms made Chu Luiyue's originally depressed mood turn for the better. She weighed Xuexue in her arms and was a little surprised. Xuexue, you seem to have lost weight? Compared to the first time they met, it seemed to be a little smaller?" Xuexue rubbed against her face affectionately. Chu Luiyue kept moving back from the itch. All right. Xuexue, stop fooling around. It's ticklish." Xuexue pestered her for a long time before it stopped. It lay down by her feet obediently. Its tail kept wagging, looking very obedient. Chu Luiyue couldn't help but smile. If others saw this scene, they would probably think that Xuexue was her magical beast. Thinking of this, Chu Luiyue's mood became a little strange. Was strange. Rong Xiao was Xuexue's master, but it seemed to be very close to her. From the first time they met until now, Chu Luiyue had an inexplicable sense of closeness to Xuexue. It was as if she felt from the bottom of her heart that it wouldn't hurt her. Magical beasts were fierce, especially high-level magical beasts like this. They were extremely proud. Logically speaking, they wouldn't be polite to anyone other than their master. But Xuexue, I haven't seen you recently. Where have you been, Chu Luiyue stroked its fur and asked casually. Xuexue closed its eyes comfortably. When its master was here, when had it ever enjoyed such pleasure? It wasn't a waste that it had been running around outside for the past few days. Chu Luiyue didn't mind seeing Xuexue enjoying herself as if she didn't hear him at all. At this moment, with Xuexue by her side, her loneliness was dispelled. But then again, you and your master are very similar. Xuexue moved and opened an eye to glance at her. Chu Luiyue tapped its wet and rough nose with a slender, white finger. They all like to barge into other people's houses in the middle of the night. Xuexue closed her eyes guiltily and rubbed her head against Chu Luiyue's palm. Chu Luiyue sighed inwardly. His shameless look was even more like, "You're back?" Chu Ning's voice suddenly came from outside the door. Chu Luiyue happily got up to open the door, but Shui was faster than her. With a move of her body, she jumped out of the window again. The crack on the already broken window became even bigger. Chu Luiyue looked at her speechlessly. She didn't do anything, so why was Shui so guilty? She opened the door and saw Chu Ning, who she hadn't seen for a few days. At this moment he was wearing the black armor of the Imperial Guards and looked travel-worn. But the moment he saw Chu Luiyue, his tired eyes lit up. You're really back." Chu Luiyue blinked and acted spoiled, which was rare of her. "The academy is on holiday tomorrow, so I came back directly after class today. I haven't seen you for a few days, misses you very much." Hearing his daughter's words, Chu Ning only felt that the fatigue of the past few days was swept away and he instantly felt relaxed. "Father also misses you, very much. I've been too busy recently, so I didn't have time to go to the academy to see you." Chu Luiyue smiled helplessly. "Father, our house is quite close to the academy, so there's no need for you to send me. But you've just taken office recently, so you must have a lot of things to deal with. Looking at you, you haven't rested well these past few days, right?" As she spoke, Chu Luiyue invited Chu Ning in and poured him a cup of tea. "That's right. In addition to taking over the affairs of the Imperial Guards, I also have to deal with the matter of the fourth princess. Previously, the fourth princess met with an accident at the hunting ground and her pearl of essence was shattered. His Majesty was very distressed and has been investigating these past few days. He has already punished dozens of people." Chu Luiyue faintly said, "Oh. Her pearl of essence was shattered, so in the future, won't she be able to cultivate? Isn't that right?" This matter caused quite a big blow to the fourth princess, and the palace is also in a state of chaos. She even said that no matter what, she must find the magical beast that injured her. Unfortunately, she was the one who chased the magical beast to the cliff that day. No one else was there at the time and they didn't even know what the magical beast looked like, so how could they find it? The fourth princess should have seen it. If she described it, it should be quite easy to find it, right? The fourth princess didn't see it clearly herself. In addition, she was too frightened to describe it clearly. Finding it is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Chu Ning sighed and did not have much hope in this matter. Chu Luiyue did not care. Rongzhen was spoiled and thought that she could do whatever she wanted just because she was the princess born by the empress. Little did she know that all the love in the past would soon disappear after she became a good-for-nothing. Only a lonely and bleak future awaited her. The people in the royal family were the most ruthless. They would immediately abandon someone who was of no use to them. It was a pity that Rongzhen did not seem to realize this. Chapter 118. Rongjin did not have an easy time these few days. Killing one another and fighting for power was one of the things that an emperor feared the most. Emperor Jianghu had also taken his throne back then, so he was even more sensitive and suspicious about this matter. Of course, he knew that this was an unavoidable fight in the royal family, but he did not expect Rongjin to be the first to make a move. Back then, the Emperor Emeritus delayed appointing the crown prince, causing Rongjin and his brothers to kill one another. Hence, when it was his turn, he appointed the empress's eldest son, Rongjin, as the crown prince as he was worried that the same thing would happen again. However, things did not go as he wished and Rongjin really disappointed him. Emperor Jianghu could not figure it out. Rongjin was the crown prince and his status was noble. He had an advantage over the others. As long as the others did not rebel, this position would be his in the future. But why couldn't he keep it in? Emperor Jianghu did not publicize this matter and ordered for the news to be sealed. Nobody was to leak it. Then he ordered Rongjin to reflect on his mistakes in the residence and took away his right to supervise the 6 departments. Rongjin sent the memorials that were sent to Crown Prince Mansion back to the palace overnight and placed them on the table in the imperial study. Rongjin knew that his father did not trust him anymore. Compared to everything else, this was his greatest loss. If his father still could not trust him in the future, then Rongjin did not dare to think too much as he knew that he was in the wrong. He could only try his best to admit his mistake and express his attitude in hopes of reducing his father's anger. This was the biggest loss he had suffered ever since he became the crown prince, but he could not take revenge on the initiator. Rongjin felt very aggrieved but he did not dare to vent. His father must be secretly watching him now, so what could he do? After much thought, he could only lock himself in the study and not come out for 2 days. On the morning of the 3rd day, Chu Xianmin brought soup over as usual. As expected, she could not even enter the door. Chu Xianmin could not keep her face straight. On the first day she married into Crown Prince Mansion, the Crown Prince was summoned to the palace overnight by His Majesty. After he came back he went straight to the study and she could not even see him. In the past 3 days, the servants in the residence had said many nasty things. Many people saw that she was not favored, so their attitude was very presumptuous. Today she had to fight for herself no matter what. However, Chu Xianmin knew that it would not do her any good if she forced her way in. Therefore, she suppressed the humiliation in her heart and spoke to the tightly shut door. Your Highness, Chuanbei snow pear soup is here for you. Drink some when you have time. Don't tire yourself out. In addition, Minmin has a request. After resting for a period of time, Minmin's body has recovered a lot. What do you think about going back to school tomorrow? If she became the crown princess, she would naturally be too lazy to go back. But now that her appearance had been destroyed, this was the only path she could take. As long as she still had power, the crown prince would not go too far with her. Therefore, even if Chu Luiyue, whom she hated the most, was in the academy, she had to go back. After she finished speaking, Chu Xianmin waited outside the door anxiously. After some time she heard Rong Jin's reply. It's fine if you want to return to the academy, but you're not allowed to live in the academy anymore. You have to return to the manor every day. Also, pay attention to your identity at all times. You definitely can't embarrass me. Chu Xianmin felt as if she had been pardoned. Thank you, Your Highness. The next day, Chu Ning left in a hurry early in the morning. Chu Luiyue guessed that the crown prince's trouble this time was more serious than expected. Thinking of this, she was in a good mood and did not rest at home. Instead, she walked out of the house and went straight to Zhenbao Pavilion. Once her figure appeared in Zhenbao Pavilion, a sharp-eyed page boy ran to the back hall to inform Yengu. Yengu, who was busy counting the goods inside, could not be bothered anymore. He rushed to the front hall, his face full of eagerness and enthusiasm, but he did not lose his respect. Ms. Liu, what brings you here? The academy is closed today. I'm here to take a look. That's great. Take a look and see if there's anything you like. Yengu rubbed his hands and looked expectant as if he would immediately give the item to Chu Luiyue as long as she said which one she liked. Chu Luiyue hurriedly waved her hands. No. Second Master Yen, you're too polite. I haven't used many of the things you gave me previously. I'm here today to ask you for a few people. Yengu was puzzled. You want people? What do you intend to do? Chu Luiyue's lips curled slightly. Clearing the accounts. Chu residence main hall. The great elder sat high above. There was a stack of account books on the table beside him. In front of him stood a few people who looked like stewards. At this moment they were all looking down nervously. The room was very quiet. Only the sound of the great elder flipping through the account books could be heard. Every time he flipped through a book, the great elder's face turned uglier. By the end, his expression had completely darkened. He slammed the account books on the table. What's going on? In this half a year, not only did the shops under the Chu family not make a profit, they even made a loss. What are you doing? The stewards were so frightened that they trembled. One of them wiped the sweat off his forehead and murmured with a bitter expression, "That's right. Great elder, we have no choice. This year's harvest is not good. We can't get back the rent from the land and business is not good either. There really isn't much income. And the residence's expenses have always been huge. That's why there's less income and more expenditure, resulting in a huge loss. Weren't there a few shops that were making a profit before? Why aren't there any accounts for those shops?" The great elder flipped through the account books in frustration. The stewards looked at each other in dismay, and their voices became even quieter. Great elder, have you forgotten? Those shops were bestowed to Chu Ning by the clan head back then. They were all written in his name. After he left the Chu family, he sent people to take back those shops. The great elder was shocked. Only now did he remember this matter. Chu Ning was very favored in the Chu family back then. He was almost publicly acknowledged as the next clan head, so he had a lot of assets under his name. After his downfall, although he was in a terrible situation and had those shops taken away, the names on the deeds were still the same. After Chu Ning became the commander of the Imperial Guards, it was naturally not a problem for him to take back those shops. They didn't have the courage to confront the current Chu Ning head-on. The great elder was so angry that he almost tore the account books to shreds. If this continued, the Chu family's future would be even worse. Great elder, Chu Luiyue is here. At this moment, a manservant suddenly ran in with a panicked expression. Everyone thought that they had heard wrongly. Hadn't Chu Luiyue severed ties with the Chu family? How dare she come here? The great elder narrowed his eyes. It's really her? Yes, it's her. The manservant wanted to cry but had no tears. She even brought a few people with her. They're right outside the gate right now. She really ate a bear's heart and leopard's guts. The great elder slammed the table and stood up. She actually has the face to come to our Chu family again. I'd like to see what she's up to this time. Even if she knelt down and begged him, he wouldn't be soft-hearted. The manservant panted heavily and spoke with difficulty. Great Elder Chu Liwe said what? She said that she's here to collect her debt today. Love Network provided a better reading experience. Chapter 119. She wants to settle the debt? The first elder was so angry that he laughed. Why would she want to settle the debt? The servant took a step back in fear. She said that you haven't given her the family property that you promised to give her when you signed the separation agreement. Also, she wants to take away the dowry that her mother brought with her today. The first elder's heart skipped a beat. He had almost forgotten about this matter. That day he was nearly driven mad by Chu Liwe. He didn't even check the amount carefully before signing the agreement. Now that he thought about it, it was a huge sum of money. Just the dowry that Chu Liwe's mother brought with her back then was already extremely generous. If he were to return it all to Chu Liwe, it would be no different from causing a huge loss to the Chu clan. The first elder paced around in frustration. He glanced at the scattered account books on the table and his mood worsened. The Chu clan was currently struggling to make ends meet. If they were to take out this sum of money, it would only make things worse. How could Chu Liwe be so thick-skinned as to come knocking on our door to ask for it? First elder, you should hurry up and take a look. Chu Liwe said that if they don't get the money today they won't leave. Right now they've already blocked the entrance. It's useless. The first elder cursed angrily as he strode out of the room. Could a mere Chu Liwe really tear down the Chu clan? The first elder rushed to the entrance, and when he saw the scene before him, he nearly fainted from anger. Chu Liwe was standing in front of the main entrance, and there were already quite a few people gathered around her to watch the commotion. She was speaking to the people around her with a sorrowful expression. That's right. When I was very young, my mother passed away, leaving only my father and I to rely on each other. I'm sure you all know that back then, my father was injured in order to save the emperor and couldn't continue cultivating. The Chu clan said that we didn't have the energy to take care of my mother's dowry, so they told us to hand it over to Lu Yao for safekeeping. After so many years, my father and I have finally made it. I don't think that the other things are important, but the dowry belongs to my mother. It's the last thing my mother left me. If I don't come back, I won't be able to rest easy. Everyone nodded as they listened. Chu Ning and Chu Liwe were also considered celebrities in the capital. People often talked about them in private, so they more or less knew that Chu Liwe was telling the truth. In fact, everyone knew that the Chu family was doing this because they wanted to seize Chu Liwe's mother's dowry. Although the Chu clan appeared to be wealthy, they were actually very greedy. Yes. This dowry is yours, no one else can touch it. You must come back. Exactly. In any case, the Chu clan is one of the 4 great clans. If they really refuse to return the item to you, wouldn't that be too much? That's true. If the Chu clan really did that, wouldn't they be throwing away their face? The great elder's face turned ashen when he heard this. He shouted angrily, Chu Liwe, what are you doing? Chu Liwe lifted his eyes and glanced at him lazily. Oh, great elder Chu, don't you know what I'm doing here? Previously, you agreed to split the family and said that you would send over the items that belonged to me and my father. However, I waited and waited, but no one came. Not even a shadow of the item was seen. I thought that you probably have a lot of things to do, so you don't have time to deal with these small matters. That's why I specially brought people over this time. Chu Liwe raised his hand and pointed at the people behind him. These 2 are the stewards of Zhenbao Pavilion. They are the best at checking accounts. In a while they will help you count the items. There will be no mistakes. These 4 are the servants of Zhenbao Pavilion. They are very strong and can help move the items away. There's no need to trouble your Chu clan. Great Elder Chu, what do you think? The great elder was so angry that he couldn't speak. This Chu Liwe actually planned everything. This time he brought people to block the door with the intention of taking away all the items. It seemed that if he didn't agree, he would directly rob them. You impudent. This is the Chu clan, not a place where you can behave atrociously. Chu Liwe replied with a question. How am I impudent? I'm only here to take back what belongs to me and my father. Can I do that? Or is great elder Chu planning to go back on his word? There were many witnesses last time and this time. It's not very good for you to do this, is it? The smile on his face faded a little. Of course I know that this is the Chu clan. If you didn't keep your promise, why would I come here? I'm afraid that if I come here too many times, it will dirty my eyes. Chu Liwei, how can you say that? Lu Yao, who had rushed over after hearing the news, immediately reprimanded him. A trace of resentment flashed through her eyes. Looking at this face now, he couldn't help but think of his daughter's disfigured appearance and that despicable wedding. Although you have no relationship with the Chu clan now, everyone here is still your elder. Have you lost your manners after leaving the Chu clan? Lu Yao still had a shred of rationality left. She didn't curse out loud. She knew that with so many people watching, it was better to use a soft approach. However, Chu Liwei didn't fall for her trick. He couldn't even be bothered to brush her off. Lu Yao? It's good that you're here. My mother's dowry is with you. Even if you want to check it, this period of time is enough for you to sort it out. Since I've personally come here today, then return them all to me. Or, are you unwilling to hand it over? In front of so many people, Lu Yao naturally couldn't deny it. She could only force a smile. How is that possible? Not to mention the Chu clan's wealth, even I, Lu Yao, was born in the Lu clan. How could I be interested in your things? That's good. Chu Liwei interrupted her and took out a list from his sleeve. This is the list of dowry my mother brought with her when she married into the Chu clan. Later, I'll hand it over to Steward Wu and Steward Zhang to check. These are the last things my mother left behind. If even half of it is missing, I won't let this matter rest. As he spoke, Chu Liwei passed the list to the two people behind him. Lu Yao was dumbfounded. That list was something from more than 10 years ago. How could Chu Liwei have it? She felt like something was stuck in her throat. Her back was covered in cold sweat. All these years, she had indeed touched those things. She originally thought that Chu Ning and Chu Liwei would never have a chance to make a name for themselves in this lifetime. Naturally, she planned to take those things for herself. Who would have thought that they would one day make a comeback? Now she actually wanted to check carefully. What should she do? Chu Liwei saw her expression. How could he not know what she was planning? He couldn't help but sneer in his heart. If she didn't skin the entire Chu clan alive today, they wouldn't know that she, Chu Liwei, wasn't someone to be trifled with. Xuanhuan, bring me a chair. Chu Liwei ordered. A burly youth behind him immediately responded. He quickly walked to the side of the carriage and brought out a red sandalwood chair. He placed it behind Chu Liwei. Chu Liwei sat down casually and leisurely. First Elder Chu Luyao, hurry up. There are so many things and I only have one day off today. I have to count them quickly. Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 120. If not for the fact that there were so many people watching, First Elder would have rushed over to teach Chu Liwei a lesson himself. Such an arrogant look really made people fly into a rage. Lu Yao. All these years, you have been in charge of the family's finances. Go and check the list with them. Give them what they deserve and don't touch what they don't deserve. Lu Yao was shocked by this shout. Seeing the anger on First Elder's face, she subconsciously agreed. Yes. First Elder still felt that it wasn't enough. He shouted at the other stewards. And the few of you, go and watch together. We can't make any mistakes in this account. The few of them hurriedly agreed. Lu Yao's body was tense and her footsteps were heavy. However, she knew that she had to do it even if she didn't want to. On the other side, Steward Wu and the other steward had already set up a formation and started to check the items according to the list. A pair of 8-colored glass lamps, 2 sets of white jade December tokens, a pair of gilded horse pots, 2 painted kongho. Lu Yao had no choice but to grit her teeth. Didn't you hear? Go and get the items from the storeroom. The servants responded and hurried over. When they took out the items one by one, the people Chu Liwei brought over would immediately go forward and take the items. After checking carefully, they would put them back in the carriage. Chu Liwei smiled. These are the most capable people in Zhenbao Pavilion. Although their positions aren't high, they are the best at identifying treasures. They will know whether it's real or fake with one look. Wouldn't it be more convenient for everyone if they checked carefully like this? This sentence shattered the last trace of hope in Lu Yao's heart. She closed her eyes and accepted her fate. Chu Liwei was going to go against them to the end today. In a tea house not far from the Chu residence, someone saw this scene clearly. His temper is still the same as before. A low laugh came from behind the beaded curtain. Did you get these people from your place? When Yen Gu heard this, he bowed again and said respectfully, Yes, First Master. Madame came to Zhenbao Pavilion early this morning and said that she wanted to borrow some people. I didn't expect. At that time he was still very puzzled. He didn't know why Chu Luiyue needed a steward to look after the accounts. Who would have thought that the steward would come to cause trouble for the Chu family? Yan Gu could be considered to have seen many things, but this was the first time he had seen such a situation. Chu Luiyue wasn't going to collect debts at all. Most importantly, this request was reasonable and couldn't be denied. The Chu clan had many people. If Chu Luiyue came alone, he would definitely be defeated. Therefore, she deliberately found a few people and exposed the matter in front of everyone. This way, the Chu family would have no choice but to do as she said. After all, the Chu family still cared about their reputation in the capital. You did a good job. Hearing the praise in the first master's tone, Yan Gu was flattered. He had followed the big master for so many years, but he had rarely heard such praise. Today he had only transferred a few people to Chu Luiyue, and the first master was so happy. He had really made a big profit. First master, you flatter me. I really didn't do much in this matter. Everything was Madame's idea. The person behind the beaded curtain seemed to shake his head and smiled. Naturally, only she could think of such an idea, and only she could do it in the most straightforward way. If it were someone else, who would dare to go against the Chu family alone? Yan Gu thought for a while and couldn't help but say, First master, Madame doesn't seem to be very clear about your identity, and she doesn't know what you have done for her. Do you want to? When it's time for her to know, she will naturally know. You just have to do your own thing well. Yan Gu lowered his head. Yes. In front of the Chu family's main gate, Steward Wu and the steward were still going through the list. This pair of half-moon feather glasses is fake. And this bamboo jade flute is also fake. The people Chu Luiyue brought over were very efficient. As they moved the items, they didn't forget to distinguish the real from the fake. They also picked out the fake items and put them aside. Every fake item that was taken out was equivalent to a slap to Lu Yao's face. The Chu family was also embarrassed. Some of them couldn't help but look at Lu Yao with resentment. Who would have thought that Lu Yao, the head of the household, would be so arrogant as to fill her own pockets? If they hadn't checked these items today, they wouldn't have known that Lu Yao had done so much to the Chu family's assets. And these were only the dowry left behind by Chu Luiyue's mother. There were so many assets in the residence. Who knew how much more she had embezzled? Sensing these gazes, Lu Yao's face quickly turned pale. Her entire body swayed like a leaf in a storm, about to be blown away at any time. If possible, she really wanted to find a hole in the ground to hide in. Every minute and every second of standing here was incomparably torturous. Chu Luiyue held his chin with one hand and glanced at the fake items that were taken out. He seemed to be smiling. It seems like your family has been doing well all these years. I was wondering why Chu Xianmin was so generous to spend 200,000 silver taels for a random set of jewelry. Red chalcedony items aren't something that ordinary people can afford. Lu Yao wanted to tear Chu Luiyue's mouth apart. Chu Luiyue clearly set a trap for Minmin, yet she still had the cheek to say it. She even twisted the truth. But before she could speak, she felt the surrounding Chu family members' gazes become even more resentful. Her heart sank. She knew that they had already believed Chu Luiyue's words. So many fake items were taken out. How could they still believe her? Even if Chu Luiyue didn't say anything, they would probably want to take her life right now. Time passed slowly. Chu Luiyue was very relaxed as he sat on the chair and watched. In between, shopkeeper Wu even specially served her tea and exquisite snacks so that she wouldn't starve. Chu Luiyue followed all the good advice. Instead of saying that she was here to ask for money, she might as well say that she was here to take her life. It wasn't until noon that the list of dowries was taken care of. After that, Chu Luiyue requested to split the assets according to the contract that day and forcefully took away a lot of silver taels from the Chu family. When the silver taels were moved onto the horse carriage, even the strong-willed first elder couldn't help but feel heartache. The few managers looked at it and felt even more heartache when they thought of the messy account books. The surrounding crowd was already stunned when they saw so many treasures. I didn't expect Chu Luiyue's mother to bring such a generous dowry when she married into the Chu family. Rumor has it that Chu Luiyue and Chu Ning had a hard time in the Chu family. Sometimes their food and clothes couldn't even compare to the servants. Selling some of these treasures should be enough for them to survive, right? Chu Ning and his wife are deeply in love. I think he's unwilling to sell them. Besides, these things are in someone else's possession. I'm afraid he hasn't seen them before, let alone sell them. That's true. The Chu family really spent a lot of money this time. The horse carriage made several trips and finally took away all the treasures. In front of the door there were only the fake goods that were kicked out. It was especially awkward. Chu Liwei stood up and lazily rubbed her shoulders. She was really tired after sitting for so long. Alright, that's all for today. First Elder Chu's eyelids twitched. What did she mean? She's coming again? Chu Liwei seemed to have seen through his thoughts and waved her hand casually. Don't worry, I won't be coming again. However, shopkeeper Wu has already taken note of these fake goods. Please make up for it in the future. You can send it to my house or I'll send someone to pick it up. First Elder couldn't hide his anger and looked at Lu Yao. This is what you've done in the past few years as the head of the family. You'll have to fill this hole yourself. Lu Yao's body swayed. Chu Liwei smiled meaningfully. Why are you angry, First Elder Chu? It's just some small things. Even if the Chu family doesn't want to take them, the Lu family's wealth is comparable to that of a country. Isn't this a piece of cake? Don't you think so, Lu Yao? The best reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 121. Lu Yao could not say anything. She was just a concubine's daughter in the Lu family and did not have a high status. She thought that their lives would be much better after Chu Xianmin became the crown princess. Who would have thought that things would turn out this way? Chu Liwei turned around. Let's go. First Elder suppressed the anger in his heart. Close the door. When everyone in the Chu family returned to the residence, he took a deep breath and shouted, Go. Inform all the elders in the Chu family. Tell them to come to the main hall. I think it's time to settle the score with the Chu family today. After he finished speaking, he did not forget to look at Lu Yao, who was in a daze. Especially Chu Yan. Get him here as well. Yes. Lu Yao's legs turned to jelly as she knelt on the ground. Her face was as pale as a ghost. At Tianlu Academy, have you heard? Chu Liwei went to the Chu family to cause trouble again yesterday. The entire Chu family is in a mess now. Why did I hear that Chu Liwei only went to take back the things that belonged to her and her father, including her mother's dowry? Logically speaking, this shouldn't be a big deal, right? Hey, it's nothing? The Chu family doesn't think so. Do you know how many treasures and silver Chu Liwei took from the Chu family yesterday? She took away a layer of the Chu family's flesh. If you ask me, this Chu Liwei is really ruthless. After all, the Chu family gave birth to her and raised her. Now that she has made a name for herself, she turned her back on them and even took away so many things from the Chu family. The Chu family's status as one of the 4 major families was already precarious. I'm afraid that this is one disaster after another. It's better not to provoke such a person. The students who had rested for the day returned to the academy today. They formed groups of 3 to 5 and discussed animatedly. This farce had caused too much of a commotion. It was hard for them not to know. What are you talking about? A crisp female voice rang out, interrupting their whispers. They turned around and saw Mu Hongyu. Seeing that it was her, most of them were fearful. Mu Hongyu's temper was fierce and she had strength. She was really difficult to deal with. Most importantly, she had a powerful background. She was the only daughter of Lord Ping Jiang, the true Princess Yong Ping. Even though she wasn't a princess, her status was equally noble. Why aren't you saying anything? Weren't you guys talking happily just now? Mu Hongyu stepped forward and swept her eyes over the crowd with interest. Although she was smiling, everyone could hear the threat in her tone. Ah, Hongyu, we were just chatting in private. We didn't say anything. That's right. Mu Hongyu crossed her arms and raised her chin. Her voice was crisp. I heard everything you said just now very clearly. Let me tell you, Chu Liwei is Mu Hongyu's friend. They have a good relationship with me. I can trust them. Alright, there's also Gu Mingfeng. You should know that he's going to fight Chu Xianmin in the finals. Gu Mingfeng? Chu Liwei was a little surprised. She did know a little about this person. She heard that he was a bastard son of the Gu family. His birth mother's status was very low, so he wasn't favored. Even though he got into Tianlu Academy, his status in the Gu family was still very low. On the day of his fight with Chu Xianmin, she didn't have a deep impression of Gu Mingfeng. She only remembered that he was a young man with a feminine appearance and a cold temperament. Yeah. Don't be fooled by his quiet personality. He's really strong. I lost to him last time. It wasn't easy to get him to team up with me this time. He isn't going to team up with Gu Mingzhu? TSK, he doesn't even interact with Gu Mingzhu. How can they team up? Besides, Gu Mingzhu is very arrogant because she's a Xian master. Why would she team up with us? Mu Hongyu didn't think much of Gu Mingzhu. Chu Luiyue nodded. Mu Hongyu suddenly thought of something and asked, "Oh, right. By the way, do you know that Chu Xianmin is coming back today?" Love Network provided a better reading experience. Chapter 122. Of course Chu Xianmin would come back. Now that she was in such a miserable state, she could only rely on herself. She just did not know how Chu Xianmin would feel when she came back after the Crown Prince and Lu Yao got into trouble one after another. "Minmin, why didn't you invite us to your wedding? We were all waiting to send you off and have a good time." A familiar voice suddenly came from the corner. Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu looked at each other and walked a few steps forward. The person who spoke was indeed Lu Fian. At this moment she was leading a few girls and surrounding a person. That person was wearing a veil. Based on her figure, it seemed to be Chu Xianmin. "Yeah. We didn't receive your invitation and we didn't even know the date. As long as you asked, we would have gone even if we took leave. We're so close. Why did you hide it from us?" Lu Fian was actually very angry. She originally planned to go on the day Chu Xianmin married into the Crown Prince mansion so that she could at least meet the Crown Prince. However, Chu Xianmin did not invite them at all. Without an invitation they could not go at all. After missing such a great opportunity, Lu Fian could not help but suspect that Chu Xianmin did it on purpose to monopolize the Crown Prince. Even though she was still smiling when she spoke, her eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. "There was too little time and I didn't have time to do many things. That's why I neglected you. I didn't do it on purpose." Chu Xianmin clenched her teeth and said. She clearly knew what these people were thinking. They wanted to make a fool out of her. There was no way. Lu Fian purposely smiled. "The Crown Prince has always liked you, and now he's even willing to let you go back to school. Minmin, you must be doing well in the Crown Prince mansion, right?" Chu Xianmin reluctantly responded. "I haven't been here for a few days. I have some things to look for my teacher, so I won't chat with you guys for now." Then she walked around them and was about to leave. However, when she looked up, she happened to see the person she hated the most. Chu Luiyue. Chu Xianmin's heart suddenly burned with anger, and her fingernails dug deeply into her palms. If looks could kill, Chu Luiyue would have been covered in bruises. Mu Hongyu stared at her alertly. "What do you want to do?" However, Chu Xianmin did not say anything and walked past Chu Luiyue and Chu Xianmin. That's strange. If it was in the past, she definitely wouldn't have given up so easily. Why did her personality change after marrying into the Crown Prince's residence? Mu Hongyu murmured. Chu Luiyue looked at Chu Xianmin's departing figure thoughtfully and smiled. "The best part is yet to come. Let's go." The imperial capital seemed to be as calm as ever, but some people had already sensed that something was wrong. Something seemed to have happened to the Crown Prince. The most obvious point was that the memorials that had previously been sent to the Crown Prince's residence were now sent to the palace. On the surface, Emperor Jiawen said that the Crown Prince was at the stage of breaking through, so he didn't want him to be distracted for the time being. But in reality, anyone with a discerning eye knew that this was taking back the Crown Prince's authority. Moreover, the Crown Prince had been in seclusion recently, refusing all invitations. Obviously there was something fishy going on. However, the palace had sealed off all news, so the crowd had no way of finding out what exactly happened. They could only secretly guess and choose to wait and see. Some people, who were originally indecisive, started to plan for themselves and secretly took action. "Third brother, what exactly is father planning to do? The Crown Prince sent someone to assassinate you and the evidence is clear. Why did father just ask the Crown Prince to reflect on his mistakes in the residence? Even if he thinks highly of the Crown Prince, he can't just let this matter end so hastily, right?" Rong Feng knitted his brows tightly and could not figure it out. After receiving seventh brother's big gift, he and Rong Jiao immediately understood. In the next few days they worked together to gather more evidence, and Rong Jiao presented all of it to father for him to take a look. The Crown Prince can't deny it. But why is father letting it go so easily? Rong Jiao looked calm. The evidence can indeed deal a heavy blow to the Crown Prince, but it's still too naive to rely on this to bring him down. But we can't just let it end like this, right? Rong Feng anxiously stood up and paced back and forth. Although he didn't really do anything to you, third brother, he can't deny it to seventh brother. This matter is just putting the blame on you, third brother. How can father be so biased towards him? As an emperor, shouldn't he hate such things? Indeed. But you forgot one thing. Even though the Crown Prince will make father hate him for doing something to me, it's still considered a lucky hit. It's also because of this that his punishment was reduced by a lot. As Rongjio spoke, he mocked himself. Didn't father keep me in the imperial city for so long because he wanted to do the same? Now that the crown prince did it for him, it made him feel much more relaxed. Hence, Rong Jin's position as the crown prince would not be shaken this time. Rong Feng looked at his expression and suddenly understood something. Third brother, you're talking about father? But since things have already come to this point, isn't it good to take the opportunity to pull the crown prince down? Rongjio closed his eyes. There's no hurry. The outside world was in turmoil, but Chu Liuyue's days in the academy were very peaceful. Soon it was the end of August and the fiend title was just around the corner. The atmosphere in the academy became lively, and excited discussions could be heard everywhere. The students also became more diligent in their cultivation. Chu Liyue could clearly feel that more people came to Jiuyo Tower. What she didn't know was that it was very difficult to earn time in Jiuyo Tower to cultivate. So many people couldn't bear to come every day. They would only come more often when they were about to break through or when something big was about to happen. Chu Liyue originally wanted to break through to become a stage 2 warrior, but he failed again, so he decided not to think about it. When Chu Liyue returned to his residence at night, he saw a familiar figure once he entered the door. No, there were two figures. Rong Xiu and Xue Xue. Chu Liyue was a little surprised. Oh, Your Highness, you're so free today? During this period, Rong Xiu seemed to be very busy. Even though he came a few times in between, he mostly came in the middle of the night and left early in the morning. Sometimes she didn't even see him. She could only know that he was here when she smelled his faint, cold fragrance. Today was a rare day. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly, took out a box from his arms and handed it over. Open it and take a look. Chu Liyue took it over and lightly clicked on it. The box opened with a sound. A dagger was lying there quietly. She took off the black scabbard and a cold light flashed across. This dagger is so sharp. Chu Liyue was pleasantly surprised. She took a closer look and saw that there were two extremely thin willow leaf-like flying daggers attached to it. With just one look, Chu Liyue could feel the strong suppression contained in it. She looked up in surprise. Those little things of yours are not presentable. I specially prepared a handy one for you. Chu Liyue remembered that Rong Xiu seemed to have said something like that before. She thought that he was joking. She didn't expect that he was serious. Her heart skipped a beat. Your Highness has been leaving early and returning late recently. Is it related to this thing? Rong Xiu leaned closer, his eyes as deep as the starry night. His voice was low and teasing. Then, how will you repay you? How about giving yourself to me? He suddenly paused and looked down at the scabbard in front of his chest. Then I can give myself to you. Digression, today it's on the shelves. First come, first serve. Everyone accompanied you all the way. Was grateful. She didn't say much, only diligently updating. I hope that everyone can support me. Thank you. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. But she had experienced the most unforgettable betrayal in the world. Now she couldn't easily give all her trust. Faced with Rong Xiu's kindness, her first reaction was not to accept it happily, but to escape. When Rong Xiu approached her, there was a faint trace of fear in her heart. That fear came from the unforgettable pain in the depths of her memory, and she couldn't tell Rong Xiu about this. Moreover, after her rebirth, the most important thing for her was revenge. If she was too close to Rong Xiu, he would definitely be implicated. This was also unfair to Rong Xiu. Countless thoughts flashed through her mind. In just a moment, Chu Liyue looked up at Rong Xiu again. Her expression was calm, her eyes were clear, and the corners of her mouth curved. Your Highness really knows how to joke. Her cold voice shattered the originally ambiguous atmosphere. Rong Xiu stared at her. Both of them were smart people. There were some words that didn't need to be said. They already understood each other's meaning. Chu Liyue waited for Rong Xiu to turn and leave. Any man who had done so much for a woman but was still rejected should not continue, right? Moreover, Rong Xiu was of noble status. However, unexpectedly, Rong Xiu didn't look angry or embarrassed at all, as if he didn't care about Chu Liyue's words. Then he reached out and grasped the scabbard in front of his chest. Just tell me, do you like this gift? Chu Liyue was stunned. But seeing Rong Xiu's insistence, she could only nod. Your Highness' gift is always good. It's good that you like it. Rong Xiu chuckled, then suddenly reached out and pinched her cheek. When I made this, I put in a lot of effort. Today you have to accompany me to rest as a token of your gratitude. Chu Liwei was shocked. This you made it yourself? Because she was too surprised, she didn't have time to complain about Rong Xiu pinching her cheek. Seeing the girl in front of him in a daze, Rong Xiu's mood finally improved. He turned and walked upstairs. I'm very tired today. I'll tell you tomorrow. Chu Liwei sneered in her heart. Why would he talk about this tomorrow? Your Highness, if you're willing to talk about it tomorrow, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to listen. Rong Xiu stopped and looked back at her. Chu Liwei also walked forward. When she reached him, she paused and raised her chin slightly. The academy will set off for Wanling Mountain tomorrow. We have to leave early in the morning. So, you'd better tell it to yourself. After saying that, Chu Liwei didn't look at Rong Xiu's expression. She went upstairs, entered her room and directly locked the door. Rong Xiu only reacted when he heard the sound of the door being locked. He looked at the tightly shut door and raised his eyebrows. After a moment he couldn't help but laugh. She was really as calculative as always. She refused to lose even a little. Chapter 124. Wanling Mountain was a 2-day journey from the imperial city. Tianlu Academy's teachers would bring the students who volunteered to go there for training. Some people wanted to hunt fiend beasts that they were satisfied with, while others wanted to use this rare opportunity to improve their skills. Fighting with fiend beasts could increase one's potential and unleash more power. Sometimes this could even help cultivators break through their own bottlenecks and advance to the next level. Thus, most of the students in the academy had signed up. Early in the morning, the students had already gathered at the first glimmer of light. The older students were fine, but most of the new students could not hide their excitement. I wonder if I can hunt a 4th-grade fiend beast during this fiend tide? Just you? Don't even think about it. Only the most talented and powerful people can hunt fiend beasts of that level. That might not be the case. Maybe I'll be lucky and encounter one. What's more, the people in our group aren't weak. If we join forces, there's a chance of success. I don't want to think too much. I just want to find a few powerful fiend beasts to fight with. Tisk, when you encounter a high-level fiend beast, you might not even have time to run. Everyone was discussing and teasing each other. They were obviously looking forward to this trip. Outside the lively crowd, a few people were exceptionally quiet. Why isn't Lu Yu here yet? It's almost time to leave. Mu Hongyu looked at the sky and was a little anxious. Yesterday she had specially told Chu Liwei twice about today's departure time and that she could not be late. Now that everyone had arrived, why was she still nowhere to be seen? Is she delayed by something? A tall and skinny young man beside Mu Hongyu asked. His skin was very white and he looked very gentle. He spoke slower than the average person, but he sounded very gentle. This person was Liao Zhongshu. Mu Hongyu shook her head. What could be more important than the fiend tide now? Logically speaking, she shouldn't have forgotten. Chu Liwei did not seem like an unreliable person. Do you know where she lives? Why don't we go look for her directly? Liao Zhongshu said placatingly. Mu Hongyu covered her face. You forgot that she's a mystic cultivator and lives in a different place from us. These days she had become much closer to Chu Liwei, but she had never asked where Chu Liwei lived. Liao Zhongshu fell silent for a moment. He had really neglected this. What's there to be troubled about? If we really can't do it, the 4 of us can form a team. We're short of 1 person, could it be that we're not allowed to go? A burly, dark-skinned youth beside Liao Zhongshu said in a gruff voice. Xinhu, are you a tiger? Mu Hongyu rolled her eyes at him. Everyone else said there are 5 people, but there are only 4 of us. How much of a loss do we have to suffer? Don't forget that when we reach Wanling Mountain we fight in small groups. Xinhu trembled from her reprimand. He scratched his head and muttered softly, then we can't find another person. Mu Hongyu glared at him. At this juncture, everyone has already formed a team. Where are we going to find another person? Xinhu finally shut his mouth. Everyone, come forward to collect your items. The few of them turned their heads to take a look. After we collect our items we really have to set off, Liao Zhongshu said with a frown. Mu Hongyu bit her lip. I'll go and ask Teacher Bai Chen. On the other side, Bai Chen was counting the number of mystic cultivators. After counting, he immediately realized that something was wrong. Where's Chu Liwei? Why isn't she here? Everyone looked at each other, but no one said anything. Teacher Bai Chen, do you know where Lu Yu lives? She's not here yet. I want to go and find her. Mu Hongyu quickly walked forward and said straightforwardly. Bai Chen was shocked. she's really not here yet? Seeing Mu Hongyu's anxious expression, he thought for a moment and immediately looked at Si Ting. Si Ting, you know where she lives, right? Bring Mu Hongyu to take a look. Si Ting nodded. Okay. However, before the two of them could do anything, Gu Mingzhu, who had been watching coldly from the side, could not help but mock them. Teacher Bai Chen, it's almost time. What if you don't make it back in time if you look for her now? Chu Luiyue didn't pay attention to the time, so it's her fault if she misses it. You can't implicate others because of her, right? Mu Hongyu glared at her in annoyance. Gu Mingzhu, what does this have to do with you? We're not in the same team as you. Even if there's a delay, it won't affect you. Why are you so anxious? Gu Mingzhu's face turned red. Am I not telling the truth? Chu Luiyue is in the same team as you. If you want to look for her, go look for her yourself. Don't drag others into it. With that said, she snorted and pursed her lips. I think she's afraid and deliberately didn't go. You? Mu Hongyu suppressed the anger in her heart. I don't have time to talk nonsense with you now. I'll deal with you when I come back. Si Ting, bring me there first. With that said, the two of them turned to leave. You don't have to look for her. I'm here. A familiar voice rang out. Mu Hongyu looked up in surprise and saw Chu Luiyue indeed. Luyu? You're finally here. Mu Hongyu quickly walked over to Chu Luiyue and could not help but pat her arm. Why are you so late? I thought you were going to stand us up. Chu Luiyue put her hands together and begged for mercy. I'm sorry. Something happened and I was delayed. Is there still time? Of course there's still time. Mu Hongyu glanced at Gu Mingzhu and deliberately raised her voice. Some people can't wait for you not to come so that they won't be suppressed again. Gu Mingzhu wanted to argue, but when she saw Si Ting next to her, she suppressed her anger and turned her head away angrily. Luyu, you almost couldn't make it. Bai Chen shook his head, but he could not bear to scold her, so he waved at her. Hurry up and go back. It will be your turn soon. Thank you, Teacher Bai Chen. After Chu Luiyue finished speaking, she and Mu Hongyu went back to meet the others. Mu Hongyu poked her and said in a low voice, Hey, why are you here? Hey, what's wrong with you today? Why are you so late? Chu Luiyue coughed. It's just a small matter. It's already settled. Yes, it was just that Prince Li and Xuexue pestered her for most of the night. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. The topic of discussion was obviously related to Wanling Mountain and the magical beast tide. Some of the senior brothers and sisters who had been there would often talk about what had happened during the magical beast tide in the past 1 or 2 years, causing the freshmen to be even more curious. If only I had broken through to become a stage 4 warrior. Mu Hongyu muttered softly as she walked. She had been cultivating diligently during this period of time, and she was even close to breaking through. But for some reason she was still a little short. Originally, she had planned that if she could successfully break through, her strength would increase greatly. Then, she would be able to choose a better and more satisfactory magical beast during this magical beast tide. But now, it seemed that this was not going to work. Hongyu, you can't rush cultivation. Liao Zhongshu gently reminded her. Of course, I know that. But who doesn't want to break through? Don't you want to? Liao Zhongshu did not argue with her and only shook his head with a smile. Mu Hongyu sighed. Why can't I be like Luyu? Although I'm a stage 1 warrior, I have the strength of a stage 3 warrior. I might even be stronger. Chu Luiyue smiled but did not say anything. She actually did not want to. Mu Hongyu looked at Gu Mingfeng again. Oh right, weren't you about to break through previously? Why haven't you done anything yet? Gu Mingfeng, who had been silent all this while, looked indifferent as he lightly said, It's probably not time yet. Chu Luiyue looked at him again and was in deep thought. Gu Mingfeng, doesn't seem to be that simple. A somewhat cold gaze suddenly fell on her body. Chu Luiyue's gaze moved slightly and met Chu Xinmin's gaze that was about to retract. That pair of eyes still had hatred and resentment that had not faded away in time. Chu Xianmin did not expect Chu Luiyue to be so sharp and hurriedly turned her gaze away. This was a rare opportunity that she begged for from the crown prince. She had to make good use of it. Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. Chu Xianmin really did not give up on her evil intentions. Rong Jin did not come this time, which showed that the severity of the matter was far beyond her expectations. She just did not know what the situation in the imperial city would be like when she returned. After 2 days of trekking, the crowd finally arrived at the foot of Wanling Mountain on the morning of the 3rd day. Looking up, the mountains were undulating. Some were steep while some were beautiful. The entire mountain was covered in lush greenery. It was truly beautiful. Standing here, Chu Luiyue could already feel a subtle aura. Sun Zhongyan was still instructing the students bit by bit. The fiend title will appear in 2 days. Everyone, get ready to enter the mountain range. Remember, act according to your capabilities. You must not enter Wanling Mountain's hinterland. You must leave Wanling Mountain in 3 days. Yes. At the foot of the mountain and in a different environment, the students' voices were much louder. Every team started to move separately and quickly disappeared into the forest. Let's go too. Mu Hongyu's almond-shaped eyes were bright, and she was eager to try. Chu Luiyue looked up. The towering mountain range was as quiet as a sleeping beast, making one feel uneasy. She took a deep breath and suppressed the uneasiness in her heart. She followed Mu Hongyu and the rest into the forest. Wanling Mountain was vast. Chu Luiyue and the rest quickly separated from the others. The surroundings gradually became quiet. Only the sound of their feet stepping on the thick layer of leaves could be heard. The leaves swayed with the wind, and the mottled sunlight shone down. After walking for 2 hours, Mu Hongyu finally could not help but ask, "Master Dongfang, you said that the fiend title array is here. When the fiend title comes, fiends will appear in the periphery of the mountain range. We've been here for a while, but why haven't we seen a single fiend?" Chu Luiyue was about to speak when she suddenly felt a cold aura. Her expression turned stern as she looked in a certain direction. Come out. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 126. Mu Hongyu and the rest were shocked and they hurriedly looked over. However, there was no movement at all. In the quiet forest, everything was very calm. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Luyu, did you sense wrongly? I don't feel the aura of a magical beast." Chu Luiyue's expression didn't change and his eyes were still fixed on that spot. "If you don't come out, don't blame me for being rude." Mu Hongyu and the rest looked at each other. There were only trees around them. There wasn't even a tall bush. How could there be a magic beast hiding here? However, Chu Luiyue didn't look like he was joking. The rest of them subconsciously kept quiet. A moment later, the fallen leaves in front of them suddenly moved. There's something. Mu Hongyu and the rest immediately became alert. There really was a magical beast here. What is this? The few of them who were facing a great enemy were all stunned for a moment. Achoo! It's a little fox? Mu Hongyu blurted out. No, it's not a fox. It's a blood ferret. Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief. The rest of them were shocked. The rumored most useless third-grade magical beast, blood ferret? Puff, 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 puff. Chu Luiyue nodded. A third-grade magical beast was not considered to be of a particularly low level. However, the blood ferret's body was small and its attack power was not strong. Furthermore, it was too lively and active. It was not suitable to be a hunting magical beast. Such blood ferrets were usually kept as pets by the aristocratic families. Forget it then. The few of them were disappointed. They did not expect that the first demonic beast they encountered after entering Wanling Mountain would be a blood ferret. Chu Luiyue nodded. None of them had any magical beasts, so they came with high hopes. However, blood ferrets were not suitable for hunting. They ignored him and turned around to leave. However, just as Chu Luiyue was about to move, he suddenly stopped and lowered his head to look. At some point in time, the little thing had bitten the hem of her clothes and was looking at her eagerly. Chu Luiyue was silent for a moment. They did not want to hunt the blood ferret, but it seemed like it wanted to go with them. Chu Luiyue bent down and wanted to take it away. However, the little thing seemed to know her intention. It ran to the other side and bit her. The blood ferret was extremely fast. If Chu Luiyue caught it with her bare hands, she would definitely not be able to catch it. Hence she did not move. "Luyu, it seems to like you a lot." Mu Hongyu could not help but say with a curious look on her face. She had only heard of the blood ferret, but she had never seen one before. It looked quite cute. Chu Luiyue also found it strange and said to the little thing, "Don't worry." She said to the blood ferret, "We don't intend to do anything to you. You'd better not follow us." After saying that, the blood ferret blinked blankly. It seemed to take a while before it understood what Chu Luiyue meant. She didn't want it anymore? Tears quickly gathered in the blood ferret's eyes. Bean-sized teardrops fell down. It looked up at Chu Luiyue as if it was silently accusing her. Chu Luiyue was speechless. Something seemed wrong? "Luyu, why don't we bring it along? You don't want it?" Can't you just treat it as a pet? Otherwise it will be lonely and pitiful. Mu Hongyu could not resist such a furry little thing. She could not help but say, "Why don't we let it follow me?" The blood ferret shook its head frantically. Mu Hongyu was a little disappointed. "It seems like it only wants to follow you," Chu Liwei thought for a moment. "Then be obedient and we will take you with us." The blood ferret hurriedly nodded and jumped up. Like a red bolt of lightning, it scurried onto Chu Liue's shoulder. It squatted, swept its tail and nestled on Chu Liue's shoulder. From afar it looked like a furry red dumpling. It was light and not heavy at all. Chu Liwei glanced at it and her lips curved up. "Let's go." After that they continued to walk into the forest. Not long after they encountered a third-grade fiend, Livid Horse. The Livid Horse was tall and was considered one of the stronger third-grade fiends. Livid horses have a cool temperament and are less aggressive. They usually don't take the initiative to fight people. They are suitable as mounts and not suitable for hunting. Liao Zhongshu said softly. Xinhu was a little tempted at first, but when he heard that, he immediately dispelled the idea. "Then let's continue to walk in. Maybe we can find a better one." After saying that, he took the lead and walked forward. However, the Livid Horse did not move aside. It stood in front of them and scratched the ground with its front hooves. It breathed heavily through its nose, and there was obvious hostility in its eyes. Xinhu noticed that something was wrong and frowned. "Bookworm, didn't you say that Livid Horses won't take the initiative to attack people? Why do I feel like it wants to fight with us?" Liao Zhongshu was also a little surprised. "It can't be, right? I have a few Livid Horses at home and they are all very docile. Why is this? Could it be that the fiends in Wanling Mountain are all more ferocious?" Before he could finish his sentence, the iron-green horse neighed and charged towards them at high speed. Xinhu was the first to bear the brunt. "Ah!" he shouted as he bent his legs and raised his muscular arms. His fan-like palms were clenched into fists and suddenly punched. Extreme Fist. He was a third-grade warrior and had a strong physical body. The power of this punch was not to be underestimated. The punch was fierce as it went toward the Livid Horse. The Livid Horse raised its front hooves and was about to dodge the punch. Xinhu immediately chased after him and actually dashed under the Livid Horse. Then, his fist turned into a claw and directly struck the Livid Horse's abdomen. Rip! The Livid Horse's abdomen was immediately torn open, and blood splattered everywhere. Xinhu's face was also stained with some dirty blood. However, this made his fighting spirit even stronger. "Die!" he shouted and was about to take its life. At this moment, the Livid Horse suddenly raised its leg and kicked Xinhu's chest. "Be careful." Mu Hongyu and the rest sensed that something was wrong and immediately went forward to help. The Livid Horse was attacked from both sides and had no choice but to be distracted. Its attack power was greatly reduced. However, it was still ruthless and kicked Xinhu's back. Poof! Xinhu suffered a heavy blow and fell to the ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood and his face was much paler. Gu Mingfeng stared at the Livid Horse and saw a hint of red in its eyes. "This beast is going crazy." Chu Liwei frowned slightly. The Livid Horse was gentle by nature. Why would it attack them for no reason? And it was so crazy? At that moment, Mu Hongyu exclaimed, "What? Liu? It's dangerous." Chu Liwei looked up and saw that the Livid Horse had bypassed Mu Hongyu and the rest and was charging toward her. It was targeting her. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.